Hello everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you may be watching this video. I am the NCS Master, and I'm back here again today for another podcast review in a relatively timely fashion this time. And gonna be switching it up this time, not doing a recently released game, but doing a game from this year that I actually personally really loved, and I felt like talking about it, but not just myself today. Doing something a bit different this time. I actually have a couple of friends with me. With me is SpaceKingScot
I
and
sometimes stream things.
and FlameGuy21.
Hello. I also make reviews.
Yeah, these two are some good friends of mine who I've known for a good while now. And today, the three of us are just going to be doing a big podcast review on what I think is safe to say is one of all of our favorite games of 2021, Nier Replicant.
I would say it was like one of my favorite games, but it was like, wow, this is a good video game that I will probably never play again.
That's the way it is for me with a lot of JRPGs in general, honestly. It's just like, wow, I love that game. I'll play it again in like 7 years.
Yeah, that's understandable with how much of a time sink these games are. But yeah, so we're just going to be talking about Nier Replicant in all its aspects, from story to gameplay, and just giving our general thoughts and opinions on the game itself and how we feel about both it as a game and as a remaster slash remake, because that is one big thing about this game. It's not an entirely new game. It's essentially a redoing. You can argue if it's either a remaster or a remake of a game made by Yoko Taro back in 2010, which was just titled Nier. No replicant or any subtitle or anything. And just to give some further context on the game itself, it's a spin-off of what was originally Yoko Taro's big name game series, Drakengard, and funnily enough, it actually spawns from a joke ending from Drakengard 1, which, wow, is that certainly a way to build what is effectively the biggest thing you're known for.
And like, wasn't that joke ending involving like a rhythm game as a boss?
Yes.
Basically, what happened was that you and the final enemy of the game ended up in the real world plot, and you both got killed by the Japanese military.
And yes, you are right, Flame. The final boss of that ending is playing a very difficult rhythm game where you alternate pushing between two buttons for 3 minutes. And but yeah, so that ending of Drakengard would spin off to become Nier many years later. And the original Nier, it wasn't a game that lit the world on fire, but it did grow a pretty strong cult following. The original game sold about 500,000 copies worldwide, and it had a decent number of fans and followers until around 5 to 6 years later, when Nier Automata was eventually revealed, and that released in 2017, which then went on to sell 6 million copies, which I'm trying to do the math on how much more that is than the original Nier.
12 times more.
Yeah, 12 times more, which, wow, that's certainly a jump. But yeah.
And also, I think more than 20-point increase on Metacritic score.
Yes, it did go up by that much. And so Automata ended up getting Nier's name as a franchise out there. And so a few years down the line, when 2020 came and hit, as godforsaken as that year was, we did get some good news for Nier fans. In March of 2020, they actually announced that there would be a 10th anniversary project, which would effectively be a sort of remaster of the original Nier, which would be titled Nier Replicant, set to release the following year. And Nier Replicant was actually going to be pretty interesting for Western audiences specifically, because it's actually built off of the Replicant version of the original game, not the Gestalt version, which was the version that we got, which effectively the two different versions basically just had a different protagonist in a different age range. Replicant was a young teenage boy, Gestalt was a grown adult man, and that was effectively
one of the most...
We gotta appeal to those Westerners, you know?
One of the most embarrassing overreaches of vocalization I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, that is very true, and like you said, Flame, it was basically an attempt to reach to Western gamers because they felt that the story of a brother saving a sister would not appeal as much to the Western audiences as a father saving a daughter.
Like, I don't know, like, I actually kind of prefer the brother saving his sister just because it's a lot less common and, like, way less overdone.
Yeah, and especially, like, to jump a little bit ahead here, you can definitely tell with the writing of the game it was meant to be the Replicant version, but,
Yeah.
but
There's
yeah.
this one point... There's this one point that became an infamous line online, which is because of... They just supplanted Kid Nier's like role with the adult Nier, and there's basically the moment where you meet Kaine, or not Kaine. It's like after you save her, and he says, "You are my friend."
Yes,
he says as a grown ass man.
You and I are friends now, which
became a meme for a reason.
Which, you know, for a 14-year-old, that's pretty understandable, but for a grown adult man, But yeah.
Person half my age, we will be best friends now.
Yes. But yeah, so this Nier Replicant is based off the original Replicant version of Nier, and it eventually released in April 2021, and while not as huge of a success as Automata, it is a definite continuation of that larger scale success. Currently, it's sold around 1.5 million copies, did great in both critical and audience reviews, and even won an award for Best Music at the 2021 Game Awards. So, I guess, just before we get into the depths of this game itself, do either of you have any feelings or have any experience with the original version of this game?
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know there was an original version of the game before the remaster was announced.
On my end, I actually am like one of the 7 whole people that were aware of Nier's existence prior to Automata, but that's only because I think it was in 2012 or 13, I was up late at night, and YouTube recommended feed does what YouTube recommended feed does, and I saw the ending to a game that I had never played before.
No, the ending.
Yeah, and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's a depressing way to end a game.
Yeah, I think
that was all I knew of it for the longest time.
I think that's actually kind of similar to myself. I think the first time I ever heard of the original Nier was when Rabid Luigi talked about its ending in one of his top 10s. And yeah, I got to know it a bit more through Automata, and I actually do have Automata. I just have yet to play it, and I was planning to play it, but then when I heard about Replicant, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the first game in the series, so I'll just wait till that comes out and play that first instead.
The circumstance under which I heard about Nier Automata was stupid. I was browsing game sales websites on archive stuff, and I was on VG Charts, and I was looking over records by Platinum Games, and they listed a new project at the time. This was like sometime in 2016, and I had never heard of it. It was Nier Automata. I was like, oh. Wait, they're making that? Isn't that one weird game where the guy, you delete your save file at the end?
Yeah.
And that was how I heard about the sequel.
I'm pretty
I heard
sure.
about Automata until like a month after it came out, and then they were just like, y'all need to play this game. And I was like, huh, what is this?
I mostly heard about it thanks to a friend in high school who was absolutely obsessed with it leading up to its release. Like, it was his most anticipated game of 2017. But yeah, that's definitely a game I'm going to end up getting around to sooner or later. But now we've got Nier Replicant here today. And so I figured just now I would give a general plot summary of the game. Not an in-depth one, because if it was an in-depth one, we would be here for like 2 hours, just me talking about the plot.
God, honestly, I don't even remember a lot of the plot. Well, it's not so much that I don't remember a lot of the plot, it just gets... They don't explain very much at the end of it.
No, they don't explain a ton of it. But yeah, I'll just give a general overview, and if you guys want to interject at any point with any comments, and then when I'm finished, we can go into the like intricacies of the plot. So the game starts pretty ambiguously, showing us effectively a frozen apocalyptic wasteland where we spend a few minutes with these two siblings, a young boy and a young girl, who are basically trying to survive against these demonic shadow monsters, with the boy basically swinging around a giant lead pipe to try and fight them off. And then it seems like the young girl falls...
I would pay good money for a whole RPG like that.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, that actually would be pretty cool if we went through the whole game in that setting. But, so then it seems like the young girl falls sick, and then we get there's probably other stories, but what may be the largest time skip in the history of fiction.
I want to point something out. There's a cool detail in that opening segment that I only noticed recently. The kid, when he uses the book for the magic to fight the shades, it's actually Grimoire Noir.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. Like, I noticed that later in my...
I noticed that too.
I noticed that later in my play, and it makes sense when you figure out who that kid is.
Yeah.
But then, so like I said, we may have perhaps the largest time skip in the history of fiction. I had to look it up to make sure. We jump ahead 1,312 years into the future. Which, holy shit.
Yoko Taro moment.
Yes. And then it seems, so then we jump ahead all this time, and then it seems like we have the same two siblings alive and well in what seemed to me more like fantasy type medieval times, so there's already immediate questions there. But then we find out that the two siblings' names are Nier is the boy and Yona is the girl, and they're living their life together by themselves in their own home, and eventually they discover that Yona has become sick with this disease called the Black Scrawl, which is incredibly fatal. So Nier goes out to try and find a solution to this, and he eventually runs into this magic talking book called Grimoire Vice,
After his sister had already run off to try and make him rich by finding magic flowers.
Yeah, which is how he ended up finding Vice, because he had to go out and find her. And so basically, Vice seems like he can figure out a way to try and cure the Black Scrawl. So he and Nier head out together to try and find a way to cure Yona, all while continuing to fight off these shadow creatures, which they're eventually revealed to be called Shades as their actual name. And they continue to go to different parts of the world, all while mainly befriending two characters in particular who remain constant. An incredibly foul-mouthed swordswoman named Kaine, and a young, timid boy who was the result of many genetic experiments named Emile. And they are the two most constant forces throughout the journey outside of Nier and Vice. And so they continue to travel around and try and see if they can find ways to help make Yona feel better. And eventually...
The quote.
Oh, go ahead.
The infamous Kaine quote. Weiss, you dumbass! Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry. Maybe I'll rip out your pages one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace. How could someone with a big smart brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord. Come over here and give Weiss a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord. Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us!
I love how this game probably would have been rated T if not for Kaine.
Yeah.
That is the quote that, if you go to the Nier wiki, that is the quote that is posted at the top before anything else.
Yeah, that is
amazing.
That is a direct quote Scott just read from Kaine in the segment that I was actually just about to mention. Which,
although,
go ahead.
That's
Flame.
a good thing you're reading it from the wiki because I assumed you just knew it by heart.
In fairness, I think it is Kaine's most famous quote. But yeah, so the quote that Scott just read from comes from an event like towards the middle of the game where Nier and Yona's hometown gets completely overrun and invaded by this absolutely gigantic shade. Like, we're talking a shade that's not too much smaller than a Colossus from Shadow of the Colossus here. And
yeah, that guy was annoying.
I also want to point something out. In the Japanese version, this is another example of stupid localization. In the Japanese version, shades are referred to as demons.
I guess that's another. I mean, I kind of like the name Shades because it makes them a little bit more distinct, I feel, than just.
Although demons makes more sense when you have the whole context of what they actually are.
That is true. Yeah, I guess it's sort of a give and take on just whichever you prefer. But yeah, so basically, the giant shade ends up invading an absolutely wrecking house in their hometown, and so. It eventually chases all the main characters into the library of the town, where it's revealed that the Shades are actually have a leader, and they are being led by an entity known as the Shadow Lord, who is basically a perfect mirror of Nier as a Shade, and he's joined by another magical book called Grimoire Noir, who seems to have a connection to Vice, as Noir talks to Vice as if he is meant to serve the Shadow Lord. And basically what happens is the Shadow Lord ends up kidnapping Yona and taking her away, and Kaine is actually forced to be turned into a giant wall of stone by Emil using his genetically given experimental powers to basically seal away the giant shade inside.
Oh yeah, Emil has to live as a blind kid because he basically every time he's like has Medusa eyes basically.
Yeah, Emil basically he turns anything he looks at to stone. So in the first half of the game, he actually has to constantly wear a blindfold, and and so Yona is gone, Kaine is turned to stone, and basically Nier, Vice, and Emil are basically just lost in the moment and have no idea what to do. And so then another time skip happens, jumping ahead only 5 years this time, not another freaking 1300. And it's shown that Nier has been training all this time and has grown up to be a lot stronger and a fair bit more jaded than he was before. Like, you notice a pretty big shift in his personality between young Nier and older Nier. And
freshman year versus senior year.
Freshman. Yeah, honestly, you're not too wrong.
Also, the Shades at this time period have become a lot stronger.
Yes, they
have.
have.
Started armoring themselves as well.
Yeah, they become
a lot more intelligent, seemingly.
Yeah, they're becoming much greater threats, but thankfully Nier is still able to take care of them due to all his training and Vice getting better with his magical prowess. And so after some time, Nier gets a message from Emil that he seems to have found a way that he could potentially free Kaine from her stone prison. So Nier and Emil journey to find Emil's sister, who was also a genetic experiment, who Nier ends up fighting off after she enters a state of insanity, and Emil and his sister fuse together, transforming Emil into this sort of skeletal robed figure, which he no longer has his stone vision, but he has a great amount of magical power thanks to.
Actually, I think he can still turn things into stone. It's just he can control how he control what he turns to stone now.
Ah, okay. Then they never really do anything with his stone vision again after that point. So I figured, I honestly thought he just lost it, but yeah. So they return back to Kaine and they free.
Also, the facility that they explored through was like a modern, real-life facility, and it was apparently, I think there's like in a lore document or something like that, it's connected to this, it's the first mention in the story of the so-called Project Gestalt.
Yes, which will come into very big importance later. But yeah, Scott is right.
And also played from like this weird top-down perspective.
Yeah,
Which I liked.
Played in like a Hades isometric perspective.
Yeah, that's what I thought too when I saw it.
But yeah, Scott is right. It's a very stark contrast to see this sort of like old-timey fantasy setting suddenly turn into what looks to be almost a hospital out of a horror movie for a lot of parts of it. Underneath.
And there was that one factory with like robots and stuff that is very not like medieval fantasy at all.
Very true.
I mean, they still look like fantasized kind of robots, like you would see in like an anime like One Piece, where they kind of look like cartoony robots. But no, like the facility for Emil is straight up science fiction stuff.
Yeah. You don't have the giant head with floating hands like you do in the factory facility under Emil's mansion.
Literally just a Zelda boss.
Yes, no, and a Kirby boss and a Wario boss. Nintendo likes to use that theme a lot, don't you know? But yeah, like I was saying, they free Kaine, and they find out they need to find these 5 fragmented pieces of a stone slab in order to unlock the key to the Shadow Lord's castle, which causes
Spoiler alert, it's the place where this adventure began.
Yeah, basically. And so the 4 go out and they find all the pieces to the stone key, and they eventually, all the while fighting off a very strong and very unique shades every time they find a new piece, and they eventually find their way to the Shadow Lord's castle and find their way inside, where upon going through they run across these 2 characters, Devla and Popola, who were friends of Nier from his village. And they effectively reveal that they have been working for the Shadow Lord, and they essentially divulge the entire idea of what Project Gestalt is. And essentially, the long and short of it, because we're not gonna go too deep into the whole lore here, because that would have to cause us to go into Drakengard and a whole bunch of deep stuff that would take forever.
TLDR, joke ending caused the end of the world. Project Gestalt would fix it.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Project Gestalt was a project meant to save humanity from a disease that was being spread, which effectively caused a global pandemic, which topical. After the joke ending of Drakengard 1, and it was essentially an idea to separate human beings, their souls, from their bodies, and they would then place the souls inside of new bodies known as replicants. And it's revealed that those original souls are the Shades, which is why every time you attack the Shades, despite them being ethereal, mystical dark creatures, they bleed like people. So yeah, the Shades are effectively the corrupted souls of previous human beings after the replicants. You would probably know better than I do, Scott. Did they ever explain how the replicants gain their own sentience?
Because of just the...
I want to say they explain in some data entry or something, but like not actually.
It's because of the untold... it's because of how long it took for the reunification to happen. They developed sentience because of being like just left alone for so long, for centuries, that they basically gained rational thought.
Yeah, okay, I think I do remember reading that once, now that you mention it, actually.
This is also the point where you get an explanation of what the disease that Yona has is, which is that it's basically the effect of what happens when a replicant's corresponding Gestalt either relapses with the disease that they had, or they die, which is why it is that all replicants who have the black scroll inevitably die.
Yeah, which is actually going to eventually be the fate of all the replicants, actually. And so, Devil and Popola effectively, in a way, tell us that humanity as the original human race has effectively already gone extinct. All that's left is the replicants of the human race that were left behind from Project Gestalt.
Which then, in a fucked up manner, means that all this time, every single time that you've gone and fought a Gestalt, you've been killing an innocent person.
Yes.
Essentially, but
Flame, is there a but to this?
I didn't really feel bad about it because a lot of them just kind of attack you first, so...
True, but there are definitely some that, like, we'll go into...
Khalil.
What?
I felt so fucking bad for that one. Khalil.
Oh,
as well as the Beast.
The young girl.
No, Khalil in his robot.
Oh, yeah, the robot. Yeah, oh, that's another one. We could go into that in a bit. But, yeah, so if, essentially, after devolving that and, fighting off Devla and Popola, which actually results in what seems to be Emil sacrificing himself to help save Kaine, Nier, and Vice. The other three go on and they confront the Shadow Lord, and they face off and fight him, and which eventually results in Nier coming out on top and effectively killing the Shadow Lord and saving Yona, but in a way that effectively means that humanity is doomed because the Shadow Lord was the leader of the Shades / Gestalts, and because of his
also Gwemar Nor was destroyed. And basically during this whole moment, it's revealed that the books need to unify so that they could be the basis by which that Gestalts and replicants are reunified, thus bringing back the true humanity.
Yeah, and
Noir was destroyed during the final battle, so thus humanity was doomed.
Essentially, yeah, and the Shades effectively all go berserk after that, and this is sort of jumping into all the kind of combining a lot of the different endings together at once.
One more thing, also, we do actually get to see what happens in a sense when they are reunified, because the reason that Yona was kidnapped is actually because the Shadow Lord is Nier's Gestalt, and his sister, he wanted to basically save his sister the same way that our Nier did, and that entailed taking replicant Yona, putting replicant Gestalt within her, but she actually sacrificed herself for the sake of
replicant Yona.
Replicant Nier.
Replicant Yona.
Nier. So that's the moment where the Shadow Lord essentially loses his will to fight, and that's how he ends up losing the fight, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because at that point he just wants to rest after a century of chaos.
Yeah.
Not a century, a millennia of chaos.
Yeah, over a millennia, because the Shadow Lord is actually the same Nier from the prologue. Like they are separate people. The Nier we play as in the fantasy times, and the Nier from the snow-struck apocalypse from the first few minutes of the game, which explains the time discrepancy. But yeah, so then after that, to sort of combine a lot of the endings together just to give it a simpler feel, essentially what happens after that is Kaine ends up actually getting fully possessed by a shade she had actually had entrapped within her body, and Nier ends up fighting her off, and he's effectively given the choice by the Shade, because the Shade, Tyrion, actually has grown somewhat close to Kaine in the time that they have been merged together. And Tyrion effectively gives Nier a choice. You can either kill Kaine to save her, or effectively give up his existence in order to save her from being possessed by the shade, like to return her back to normal. And like he doesn't just die. It was as if he never existed in the first place, is essentially what would happen there. And you can choose either, but canonically it is the latter that happens. So Nier gives up his existence in order to save Kaine. And then it's eventually revealed again that after those events, 3 years of time passes, and Kaine is still continuing to fight shades by herself, because
the world has gone even more to shit.
Even more so, yeah, because Nier's dead, or Nier's effectively gone, and she thinks Emil's dead, and same with Vice. And so she continues to fight along in a new segment for Replicant, actually, that wasn't in the original game, because in the original game...
Although it did exist in novel form, thankfully.
Yeah, and it was originally planned, but it had to be cut. So yeah, in the original game, you just nuke your save file, and that's the end of the game, folks. But in Replicant, you play through an all-new segment where you play as Kaine, and essentially... It is basically, this ending E, as it's known, it's basically just a way to add what Scott mentioned, what was in the novel, to the game itself, and is basically just a way to very strongly link Replicant and Automata together, because basically Kaine finds this almost computer-like world inside of a giant tree in one of the forest villages you can enter in the game.
You visited this tree earlier, actually, and thus, it was like an intelligent tree that had an AI of some sort, and you could interact with it by means of like this visual novel segment.
Yeah.
and in which Nier and Weiss made fun of it throughout. So, spoiler, it's actually the database upon which Project Gestalt was founded. Well, if it's a database, that suggests that it should have, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, who else in there?
Yeah, well, when you enter that database inside the giant tree, you are met with basically two administrators who are just it's 2B and 9S. Like it's straight up them in like younger child forms.
Yeah.
The AI. Okay, so I have to get into slight Automata EU spoilers, but basically those were the prototype AIs upon which the various Yorha androids and their derivatives were based on. And so you are talking to essentially the child versions of 9S and 2B.
Effectively, yes. And so Kaine fights her way through this digital landscape, and she actually reunites with Emil, who is actually alive and well and now has 4 arms. And
it's magic.
Yeah, it's magic. And effectively, you fight through. They fight essentially kind of the core of the whole database in a way, which manifests itself as this really hateful shade called Hook, which Kaine has a very strong connection to. And
which may or may not be the Gestalt of Kaine's grandmother.
Yeah. And so the two, Kaine fights off Hook, basically the data version of Hook, along with the help of Vice, who actually does reappear to help fight off Hook. And
he never died. Basically, the book disappeared, but his soul persisted, and he was able to remanifest himself.
Essentially, yes. And so the game ultimately
EU stuff. Basically, he and the other book, they were basically humans that their souls were disembodied, turned into magic books, and that's the basis of the shit. The magic itself is derived from the stuff that ended the world in the joke ending of Drakengard.
Yeah, so some magic entered the world in Drakengard's joke ending. And so essentially what happens is Kaine and I'm sorry.
Kaine, Weiss, and Emil.
Yeah, Kaine, Weiss, and Emil. I'm sorry, I've got noise in the background. And Kaine, Weiss, and Emil end up overcoming Hook, and they end up breaking out of like the digital landscape, and essentially what happens after that is a giant flower arises from the ground, which actually Drakengard fans will recognize. That's actually the same flower that appears in the eye of the protagonist of the third game, Zero. And out pops Nier. He's alive again. He actually is brought back from being erased from existence, and I guess he's essentially, I guess a way to think of it is he's essentially dragged out of the collective consciousness of life to eventually be brought back to reality, I guess is a way to think of it.
The way I rationalize,
just like I have zero idea what's going on.
the way I think it's supposed to be rationalized is that well, replicants are artificial beings, so basically he was rebuilt on the basis of the data that was preserved within the tree, because all of the people forgot him, but artificial beings therefore would not. That's the way I rationalized it.
Yeah, that's true, and that's actually...
Also, it could also tie into some of the basis of why it is that Kaine had kind of flashes of him during this whole sequence, because her replicant was actually messed up during the creation process, lending some idea to a degree of artificiality within her.
Yeah, very, very true. And so Kaine in Nier, essentially they reemerge from the giant flower that comes out of the ground, and that's essentially where the game ends. Nier is alive, they're all together, and they don't really give a hard conclusion on what happens to all of them, but you basically just have to assume that they all just try and live their lives together until they are eventually taken by the Black Scrawl and die off, and eventually many years later the Society of Robots rises, and that is eventually what gives way to Nier Automata, effectively.
I also like the definitive connection that Project Gestalt and its technology was the basis of Yorha.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I think, aren't like Kid Nier and like Adult Nier living at the same time or something?
No, not really that. Nier is brought back in his younger form when he is revived from being erased from existence.
Yeah, but like, weren't they both talking in the ending at some point?
Yeah, you mean the ending, the bonus ending message? I don't think that's canon.
Yeah, I think
because honestly, this game got so weird. I just assumed it was.
That's fair.
Yeah, totally fair. But yeah, I agree with Scott. I'm pretty sure the bonus ending message is just it's a meta non-canon thing where it's like, oh, here's all like the big main characters like saying goodbye to you as like a nice thank you for playing the game. But yeah, that's like a general summation of what happens in the story. So I guess before we get into like the little details of it, I guess I could ask you guys, what did you think of the story overall?
Shit's so big-brained, even me who likes big-brained stories had to pay really close attention to follow all of it.
Yeah,
I'm a Xeno fan, so I'm used to stories being big brain as fuck. I had to pay really close attention. I liked it though. I really did like it.
Go ahead, Flan.
I like the story, but like I said before, I don't like how that like at some points they're just like, okay, actually, how about you just read a bunch of like data logs or whatever, and like also read the novel too. Or something.
Yeah,
they don't explain a whole lot near the end.
I totally get that. I totally do. But I think that a lot of this game's problems, this is kind of getting into later points, I think a lot of this game's problems are budgetary in structure, because it's very clear that, like, if they could have done CG cutscenes for the stuff such as, like, the true history of Project Gestalt, or, like, those visual novel segments, I think they probably would have. But Square Enix gave them the budget of a Pop-Tart, so, you know.
Although I feel like there was novel sections still would have been there just because of how weird it is.
Yeah, I feel like some of them would have, at the very least, like to give the viewers some context of what we're talking about. Basically, there are parts of the game where you're not really playing the game at all. You're effectively reading a book that
Like,
is
not even like a visual novel, like with like character portraits and stuff.
Just
No,
text.
it's just literally a book.
yeah, you're just reading text, and like it happens multiple parts throughout the game, and like some of them are pretty charming, and like they're all very well written, so like it's not like you're reading terrible stuff, but some of them can go on.
Yoko Taro is a great writer, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yoko Taro is a phenomenal writer, but they can go on for a very long time. Like the big one that I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to have trouble with is the one that starts in the beginning of the B path, where you are given
Like a half hour.
Oh yeah, you're given a massive dump of all of Kaine's backstory, and it's all in text, and I can't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty certain that for me, it was 45 minutes of straight reading.
I don't remember how long it was for me, but like it was just like, wow, there was a lot of text here.
There was a lot of it. You were effectively
I was like, from my perspective, I was grateful to know it, but I do kind of wish that we got like cutscenes, like proper animated cutscenes for important events like that. But
Yeah, like
I'm just
that.
I'm just grateful we got it at all, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm glad to have it. It's just like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, it was very likely down to just budgetary constraints. Like, because I even mentioned it earlier. Ending E was supposed to be in the original game, but it wasn't.
Because
Right.
like otherwise there was novel sections actually have like a legit story reason, like it's a dream sequence or something.
Also,
Remember
Emil's backstory and his whole connection to his sister and how he survived his supposed death, all of that was also a novel segment too.
Yeah, that happens after the revisit to the Airy. But yeah, giving my feelings on the plot overall, I really, really loved it, honestly. I thought it was incredibly well written. I love the characters in this game. Like, the characters in this game have so much charm and life, and a lot of it, like I said, it's just down to the writing. Like, a little rule of thumb for me with storytelling is if you can give me a story that both when it is appropriate makes me laugh my guts out and cry like a baby when it's appropriate, all in the same story, that to me is the sign of a great story. And this game did both. It made me laugh, it made me angry in a good way. It made me sad. It was really, really well done. But I do definitely understand why some people like what you brought up, Flame, how it can be very convoluted. Not everything is immediately answered to you. I mean, the whole basis of how the events of this entire story start come from the events of a game series that many people for a long time did not even know was connected to Nier.
Yeah, that would do it.
Like, there's probably still a lot of people who don't even know that Drakengard is a thing and is linked to Nier.
I think the way they'll go about doing it, because of the ending, E, and that whole segment with the flower, I think that they'll probably like do because Drakengard 2 is not canon. Yoko Taro did not make it.
Oh, okay.
But Drakengard 1 and 3 he did make. I think they might remake those two games and just call it something like Nier Drakengard.
Yeah, Nier Drakengard.
There you go.
That would I would actually be totally down for that. I would totally buy that. But yeah, essentially,
Although, like, honestly, I know nothing about Drakengard. I just know it exists, and the joke ending is canon to Nier.
Oh, I barely know anything about it either. I only know the parts that would really link.
Basically, the main protagonist is a psychopath who goes around annihilating the enemy army in a war, and he's so vicious and shit that like even his dragon partner's like, wow, like don't you think that some of them deserve mercy? And that's why it is that Yoko Taro had him killed off in embarrassing fashion in ending E.
Oh my god.
But yeah, to give the audience just a general, like an easier comparison to go off of for how these two series are connected and sort of their relation to each other in like how gaming audiences can view them. Basically, Drakengard is to Nier what SMT is to Persona, effectively. Like, the spin-off has completely overshadowed the original creation.
Can't believe Nier ripped off Persona.
But yeah, so like like our general, like, I think we all agree it's a very good story.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like like in terms of JRPG writing, I think that it's up there with Xeno and like other like really great ones like The World Ends With You in terms of like how well it's written.
Yeah, like
I don't, maybe it's too mean-spirited to say this, but I do kind of like, I think that this might have actually been better suited as a book or an anime, because the original release of Nier, the game was the story was held back by its game almost.
Yeah, the original Nier was pretty jank. Yeah, in fact, it's actually kind of funny. Nier sort of did some looping back here because in order to improve upon the original Nier, gameplay-wise, it took cues from Automata in its game design.
Shoutouts to the programmers for Replicant 1.2 because they had to like redo the game's entire combat structure, but in addition to that, and because like they basically made you like an unstoppable god by the standards of the original release, they had to go back and update 11-year-old AI programming. And they consulted the original Nier's programmer, and he's like, I don't remember how this works.
Yeah,
we're on right track now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember talking to you before outside the podcast, and I remember you mentioning to me that in the original Nier, the AI was rock stupid.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're going to have like a better combat system and combo strings and stuff, you have to tie that into a more competent AI design, which they just straight up, they basically had to redo it from scratch, to my understanding.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think we can get into the combat in just a little bit, but I figured if we wanted to go into sort of like the intricacies and maybe some more little details about the story, because like I think probably I think probably the big thing we should mention is that this game, there is a lot more to it than meets the eye when you first play it. When you go through the Route A, basically when you very first play the game, Nier, like, it very much seems like your characters are the clear-cut heroes, you know, they're fighting against evil and all that, fighting off monsters, but it's something you may not pick up on at first, but you may notice that during the cutscenes, when you're fighting, particularly the unique shades in the second half of the game, when you're looking for the stone tablets, to unlock the gates of the
Castle.
Yeah, the Shadow Lord's Castle. There are moments in the cutscene where there's no dialogue, but it's holding on the shades a fair bit. You notice this a lot with the young girl shade in the abandoned ship section after you beat her, and you're wondering like, it feels like something should have been there. But then you play through the game, the second half of the game again, with ending with what is known as Route B, and you find out more about what's going on, because it turns out the shades are not just mindless monsters. They are very much sentient, feeling creatures who have empathetic emotions and can care for one another. Like there's this wolf shade who is attacking the main desert village you can enter in the game, but he's only doing it to try and save the land and the lives of his other fellow organic wolves. Like there's actually a scene added that you don't get in Route A. There's a lot of scenes added in Route B where you just see all these wolves just dead and speared on the ground, with the shade wolf just like completely beside himself with grief over the death of his comrades and effectively family. And it essentially, all this gives more context to these shades that, like, oh, these are actually kind of caring individuals. Like, you just can't understand them. Although Kaine can understand. It's heavily implied that she can actually understand what the shades are saying, and it kills her throughout the game, through a number of parts of it. Like, she tries to just ignore everything they're saying, like, particularly with the young girl who only really just wants to care for this nice mailman who's been taking care of her in the abandoned ship. And it really contextualizes the game of it essentially. Route B is essentially that clip from SpongeBob where he's the hall monitor. Wait a minute, Patrick, I'm the maniac.
Yeah. Or the one that really got to me was the child shade and his robot friend, because they didn't do anything wrong.
No.
They really didn't do anything wrong, because the guy was like, okay, you have to go down there, kill a shade and a robot because they killed my brother. And the extra cutscene, it's revealed, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. They're not responsible. Your brother just died because you were an idiot.
Because of a freak accident.
Right. And they were minding their own fucking business, and you go down there and you annihilate the shit out of both of them, and they're like, the kid's like begging for mercy and begging for the goddamn robot to flee, and because he's the only thing, that robot was the only thing he had left, and it really just, that's the moment where you go like, am I the bad guy?
Yeah.
Because especially after like the psycho kid comes down and he starts fucking kicking the robot's corpse and he's screaming like a maniac, and I'm just sitting there left over with that idea. It's like, yep, I did this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh god.
Ending like Route B in particular just shows to you how tragic this world is from all sides. What, like it's
Well,
oh, go ahead, Flame.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just heartless, but like I didn't really feel that much during this.
I mean, I guess it's fair. I can understand why you would come to the end of the story and feel that Nier is in the right for what he's doing, because it is
I don't
true
think
that
he's like in the right necessarily, but like given his perspective of not even knowing what's going on in the background, like you can't really blame him either.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I think that's Yoko Taro. He said in interviews that like he used to be like of the mindset that like if you're playing as a video game protagonist and you're an individual that kills many people in order to accomplish your goal, that means that you can't necessarily be a good person yourself. But he had his mindset shifted because of the real world tragedies of 9/11 and the resulting war on terror. And then he came to a deeper realization, which was that people fight and they die and they kill for the specific reasons that define their lives and what happens over the course of one's life experience. And he wanted to implement a shade of that within this story. Like, you're playing as Nier, an individual who is, from an outsider's perspective, who had all of the information, you would probably call Nier the bad guy. But from his perspective, he's in the right.
Yeah.
He's in the right because he's trying to save his sister.
Yeah, it's very likely Nier wouldn't be doing all this if he knew about who the shades actually were.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating because the way I perceived it was that you could kind of read into the shades like not being able to communicate with the replicants, you could kind of read that as how in ancient history, a lot of wars and conflicts that would have occurred, they might have been able to reach an alternative solution had the people partaking in them been able to communicate with one another, if not for the language barrier and cultural differences that existed between one another.
Yeah, very, very true. Hell, honestly, given the context of everything, you could argue Kaine is kind of the biggest monster because she can understand these things, and yet she still goes through with killing them.
Yeah, like, wait, what? So it's like you can understand them, but you don't tell anyone else about it?
Right. Maybe I have no idea why Kaine is the way that she is. If I had to wager a guess, it would be because Kaine had. It was because of her own history, how she had her whole moment with her grandmother, right? And she like rationalized, well, if this shade could do this to my grandmother, then rationally speaking, that must mean that all shades are actually secretly monsters. Of course, we as individuals from the outside, we recognize that as an irrational assumption, and especially so with the additional information that we know. And we can actually get tinges of that, right, with the self-hatred that she experiences. This actually goes right into one of the things I listed down, which was Kaine deconstructing the strong heroine archetype. If this were penned by a weaker author, we would have had Kaine proud of the fact that she's doing this, on this mission or whatever, but she's not proud of it. We find out like in ending D just how much pain she was in, and the self-hatred, as well as the feeling that you're helpless, that there's nothing that you can do to escape this. Like, I just kill shades, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like that representative of a person that wants to change who they are, but they don't think that they're worthy of doing so. And that plays into the notion of how she fell in love with Nier, because he accepted her for who she was, regardless of the blood on her hands.
Yeah, and a lot of her mindset can be attributed to the fact that she just had a very fucked up childhood. Like, her early life was not good at all, basically.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so that's why she's a strong deconstruction of this, air quotes, strong heroine archetype. Like, if you sit down and you watch the movie Captain Marvel, the whole thing is about how she's got to accept, like, this responsibility. She's got to be proud of the fact that she has these godlike powers. Kaine isn't. She hates it. She hates the fact that she's different. She hates the fact that she has to be the one to fight Shades. She hates what this mission that she's gone on to get revenge, and then she ended up with Nier in the aftermath thereafter of the killing of Hook. And by the end of it, she's just fighting, quite literally, just for him. Like, that's what it was. It was that by the end, that was the only person in the world that she still had faith in. That was the only person in the world that she felt that she had a reason to go on for. And I some people might say that that's like reductionist, because it would be like it would be a detriment to her character, but I actually quite liked it, because a lot of authors today are relying way too heavily on the badass female heroine archetype and not really examining it from a different angle, and Yoko Taro did, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and I honestly
Also did it like 12 years ago?
He did.
Yeah.
He was ahead of the curve with that.
Basically, yeah, he really was. I mean, he was ahead of the curve on a lot of things. I mean, hell, going back to something that Scott mentioned earlier with Drakengard, and how he also mentioned that Yoko Taro's original mindset was if you're a character who has to go around killing other people to resolve your goal, that doesn't make you a good person. Honestly, if you look at Drakengard 1 from a certain perspective, I think the main character's name is Kaim, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's affected.
He's a psycho.
He's not just a psycho. He's effectively covering all the topics that Undertale was praised for. The idea...
yeah. Kinda, yeah.
Basically, someone who goes around mindlessly killing without thinking of the consequences because it's just a game.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the deconstruction of Kaine as the strong hero archetype. Yeah, like we said, that's another thing that Yoko Taro was just really ahead of the curve on. He really is. He's kind of like Kojima, where he kind of hits on things long before they're relevant.
Senator Armstrong make him. Senator
MGS2
Armstrong
basically predicting what the internet was gonna be like in like 1999.
How does that game age better? Age better with each year that passes?
Metal Gear
I don't
Rising
know.
is the exact same way, right?
Yeah.
Where you have Senator Armstrong, who was basically Donald Trump before Donald Trump was Donald Trump.
Machine, son.
Honestly,
I
yeah.
just like big brain Japanese authors give me life sometimes.
they really do. They really do.
Okay, so to close out the discussion of Kaine and the deconstruction of the strong heroine archetype, I just wanted to point out how I noticed something that was interesting in how, Kaine's determination to have Nier back by the end. It made me realize something, which was that, yeah, Nier gave her humanity back in his sacrifice, but the thing is that he did not meaningfully improve her life in doing that, did he?
No.
Because the thing is that, like, she is still miserable in ending E. The thing that made her happy was him.
Yeah, basically.
Sad
So-
boy hours.
Even by doing this one thing that you could actually genuinely call unabashedly heroic, that without question, in ending D, Nier was still doing something that was questionable in the end, because all she wanted was a reason to go on, and that reason was him.
Yeah, it's very similar to. It's a very different piece of media, but it's very similar to something that I actually really love that My Hero Academia has actually touched a lot on, the concept of selfish selflessness, because you are doing something that in a way is helping people, but deep down, is it truly what those people want?
Right. That's very good. And actually, this just ties into one of the major themes of the game, which is pseudo-heroism. Pseudo-heroism basically being this concept where you're doing this thing that is presented as heroic, but if you look at it from another perspective, you could see how there's flaws in that logic. Like, fighting and killing each of those shades that were protecting the keys to the Shadow Lord's castle. From Nier's perspective, those were heroic acts that he was doing, but from an outsider's perspective, they absolutely were not. And that leads into this idea that all of the things that Nier was doing throughout the adventure were, in essence, only pseudo-heroic. They weren't really sincere, in that there was questions to be had in the intentions and the meaning behind them. And this is obviously, again, Yoko Taro, big brain, Japanese author moment. Right? You could kind of call he was inspired by the War on Terror. Was the U.S. itself not necessarily being pseudo-heroic in the War on Terror? It is undoubtedly a tragedy what had occurred in the terrorist attacks, but was that call necessarily for an invasion of countries and killing of people that had nothing to do with those acts?
Yeah, very, very true. Honestly, you could look at all war as being pseudo-heroic
Exactly.
Because like to quote Obi-Wan, it's only heroic from a certain point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, this is a good story. Big Brain Yoko Taro has to wear that mask to keep his brain in because it's so big.
Right. Okay, you addressed a little bit of this earlier, actually, which is how Nier became a more grizzled individual because of his because of the time skip.
Yeah.
I think he's actually kind of a deconstruction in that regard of the angry protagonist archetype. Because the thing is that he is angry at the Shades, but the interesting part is how he's actually one of the kindest and most accepting individuals presented in the entire narrative. He is accepting of Emile without question, despite the fact that he looks like what we would identify as a freak and/or monster.
Yeah.
He is accepting of Kaine, despite the fact that she is what we would perceive to be either a psychopath or, well, this ties into supplemental material, but she is intersex.
Yeah.
Right? And there's also Weiss, who is a sassy floating book.
Oh, his
and he accepts him.
his first friend is a floating talking book.
Right? So is it not interesting then how he is presented in the second half as a hateful, angry, vengeful person, but he is also, in the same breath, one of the kindest people that we know in the story.
Duality of man.
The duality of man. It's interesting. I think that's also ties into the themes, the undertones and themes of war, right? That he alluded to, how it is that we could have people like Nier in our world today, and we send them off to war when they have no reason to be hateful, but they find a reason to be hateful.
Yeah.
Nier had no personal reason to hate the Shades until the Shadow Lord attacked his village.
Yeah.
He had no personal reason to hate them. And then it even leads into that notion of how he was presented with some reason because of Project Gestalt, but he still did not question his actions. There was that candid moment in the final battle where he's fighting the Shadow Lord, and the Shadow Lord has fallen into despair because Gestalt Yona has finally passed after 1,000 years, and he's like, "You want me to feel sympathy for you?" Even
Fuck
though
you.
we as the audience do feel a degree of sympathy because we were the ones who played him at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Dramatic irony.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I may be connecting things a little bit wrong here. You would probably know, well, Scott, but do you think maybe like the deconstruction of Nier as like the angry protagonist could kind of be similar to Guts in a way?
I would not at all be shocked if Guts was the inspiration.
Yeah, like it's not 1-to-1, but I can definitely see parallels there.
Right.
Yeah, it's really well done. It's such a good difference between what the player is feeling and how Nier himself is feeling, because you can see both sides of the situation and see there's justifiance in both sides of this conflict.
Mm-hmm. And also going into that notion of like the potential Berserk inspiration, Guts is fighting against the demons, even though by the end the demons are arguably more on the right than he is.
Yeah. That is very true, actually.
Right.
Oh my god. Yoko Taro.
Big brain
learns from big brain.
Right. Another one I actually had written down here, which was Emil and deconstructing the quirky mascot character, because Yoko Taro is always walking around wearing that stupid looking mask.
Yeah, that's Emil's head.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing is, in any other JRPG, Emil would have been written as this annoying, abrasive douchebag that's horny for everyone.
He would have been Teddy or Morgana.
Right. As much as I love Teddy, you're absolutely right there. But no, he's actually reserved. He's polite. He's kind. He's also very disgusted by what he had ended up becoming. He had shame in his eyes, his powers, right?
Yeah.
And he had to learn to love who he is because of Kaine, which itself was interesting how she herself also hated herself. And she learned to love himself because of her. So, big brain, dramatic irony.
Yeah. And it's also it is actually one small little aspect that it's more heavily implied than Kaine's dealing with being intersex, but shout outs to another aspect of Yoko Taro with some good representation. Emil is actually gay. Some good representation there.
And then therein lies, yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
He's gay for Nier.
Yeah, it's heavily it's basically all but straight up said during the wedding between in the desert.
Okay. So like when he said that you'll find someone one day, and like that's not exactly what I meant. Like what someone said like that. I thought he meant he wanted to be the wife.
Basically, in a sense, yeah. That's why he said he wanted to take I think Fira was her name. Was that the girl?
Yeah.
He wished he was Fira because he wished he was getting married to the prince because he's gay.
Because I interpreted that as being like transgender and stuff.
That would be another interesting interpretation, but I think it's pretty directly stated in like EU content for Nier that it is that he is gay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, real good shout out to Yoko Taro for actually really good, especially for the time, like 2010. That is shockingly good representation.
Yeah. It's
And
kind
that
of weird
also,
to think
again,
how.
that plays into that notion of the deconstructing the angry protagonist, because Nier is such an accepting and kind person. Why? Why did it have to end up like that?
It's like, yeah, you do you, bro.
It's like, oh my, this is like Yoko Taro. Are we sure your alias isn't Shakespeare? Because I'm getting some parallels here, my man.
Damn, dude. The last one I had written down.
Didn't someone mention that, like, oh, your stories and writing style have like a lot of parallels to like Shakespeare, and he's like, I've never heard of that, but I have heard of Hamtaro.
Our other main character is Weiss, and how he deconstructs the fated hero archetype. His fate, or what he's supposed to do, is unify with Grimoire Noir and save the world in order to reunify replicants with Gestalts, and he completely rejects that because he's friends with this one dude who was nice to him and gave him a cool nickname. And I think that was quite interesting how it is that throughout the entire game, he's kind of presented as like a snob, but he's also probably like one of the most loving people in the story, because he kind of occupies that fatherly role that Nier kind of needed throughout this entire adventure.
Oh yeah,
because Nier grew up without his parents.
Yeah, very much so. Like the moment I always think to where I really thought, Weiss really is a lot like Nier's father figure, is the moment in the wrecked ship where they find an entire pile of bodies in the lowest floor, and when Nier checks them, Weiss is just like, turn your eyes away, boy. Let's just make our way forward. You don't need to see this. Well, it felt like a father trying to console his son from like a very disturbing sight.
Right.
How was that in like the Gestalt version? Was just like, yeah, two dude bros going on an adventure together.
Actually,
that'd be an interesting question.
Yeah, well, actually, in fact, actually, the ship area wouldn't have happened because that's probably something I should have mentioned earlier. The ship section is completely new to Replicant.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the segment with the pirate ship actually was not in the original game. It was a completely new segment added for the remaster remake.
Do you just like cut to like the boss fight then in the original?
I'm not. Truth be told, I'm not entirely sure. Actually, it's not even the same boss because the young girl was even promoted as a new character for the remaster. So I actually don't know what happens in the original game in that segment. I should probably look it up at some point.
Oh yeah, about her, because the boat was a slaver ship. You could kind of read into the notion that maybe before Project Gestalt, she was a slave and had no one who loved her, and that's why it was that she connected to the mailman.
Yeah,
and wanted to be human.
Yeah, Yoko Taro, why do you do this to us?
Back on that, closing that thought on Weiss and the fated hero, I just love this because by another author's pen, Weiss would have been human and he would have been the main protagonist. He's not, and that's brilliant because it allows them to present Weiss as a fated hero, and he is one who rejects his fate.
Yeah,
and
very
he's not
true.
even the protagonist.
And I also do really love the way Weiss is presented as a character because, like you mentioned earlier, he's very haughty. He's kind of uptight, and he's like, I am this very important grimoire that must be treasured and worshipped. But he doesn't go too far with it, because he's at first very insistent that everyone calls him Grimoire Weiss by his full name, and then you've got shortly after when Nier is introducing him to Yona starts calling him Vicey, which you think in any other context he'd get all uppity, in another writer's hands he'd get all uppity and haughty about it, but he's just like, oh boy, I guess I'm this now.
This is my life now.
Yeah,
This is my life now. Yes, exactly. I feel like a person who needed to hear the writing of Nier when they first experienced it. They hear all this stuff and it's just like, well, this is my life now.
Well,
that's the message to be taken away.
basically. Yeah, it's just the whole story is just it's such a good. It perfectly captures a tragedy, honestly. It's a great story that'll make you laugh, but also just rip your heart out in so many ways.
I mean, it ties into the whole thing, which is just the whole game is a deconstruction. Ironically, each of the protagonists are a deconstruction of a trope, but the whole game is a deconstruction, which is of the entire concept of the hero's journey. The hero's journey being this one archetype upon which most of modern storytelling with heroes are based upon. And Yoko Taro just ripped up the script and pissed on it with this game.
Which I really do appreciate because it feels like all of this is done with a purpose. It's not something like The Last of Us 2, which is just written to be a cruel, hateful story that repeatedly kicks the player in the dick for the sake of it. There's actual meaning behind this tragedy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they go through the entire cycle of the hero's journey throughout this. The call to adventure, which is that Yona gets sick. Supernatural aid, which is that he gets the Grimoire Vice. Then there's the threshold, the challenges and temptations, the initial adventures. The abyss, which is losing Yona, being the transformation, the time skip. Atonement being being how he finds all of the pieces to the castle, and then goes there. Gift of the Goddess, which would manifest as the sacrifice of Gestalt Yona, then the return, which would be his sacrifice, and then return the refusal of the return, which is the ending D, and then finally the true return, which is ending E.
Yeah,
And that's the whole hero's journey. He goes through all of that. But every single step along the way, the script is flipped in some manner or another.
It's pretty interesting how that it's that usual hero's journey, but you end up doing more harm than good overall.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Through Call to
even
Adventure,
if Nier didn't intend to do that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the events of this game and these characters are why only robots exist in Automata. That's pretty much why it's really only machines that exist in the world of Automata, because by these events that they think are heroic, they just end up creating the death of humanity, essentially. Even though humanity was already gone, it resulted in humanity's true permanent death, with the replicants wasting away and the Gestalts going berserk, and now all that's left is machine in the time of Automata.
Anyways, how Yoko Taro has deconstructed this whole cycle of the hero's journey. First of all, the call to adventure, and most other things, it would start with Yona being kidnapped. But no, it's just that she's put in a kind of threat that's relatable, which is that a loved one has become sick, right? That's the deconstructing of the call to adventure. Supernatural aid, well, it turns out, Grimoire Vice is actually kind of a product of science.
Yeah.
not actually really magic necessarily. Then there's the challenges and temptations. In most other stories, this would be the point where Nier gains a grip of his power, which he does, which is the sealed verses. But it's in this instance, it's actually more so the challenges and temptations are the radicalization. How you put your ears in your you put your fingers in your ears and you turn off your head and stop listening to these signs, which is that you might not necessarily be in the right. Abyss and Death, right? There's the moment where Yona is taken. This is an inversion of the call to adventure because these roles are being reversed here.
Yeah.
In Abyss and Death, that would be the point where, by the pen of another author, this would be the point where Yona dies.
Yeah.
But it's not. And then the transformation is supposed to be the moment where the hero becomes greater than they ever were before. This is where Goku becomes a Super Saiyan. This is where Chrono is revived. This is where Samus gets the gravity suit. This is where Spider-Man masters the Spidey sense, etc.
Yeah.
In this story, the transformation is actually becoming a grizzled older man who is more hateful than he once was.
Yeah.
So it's a negative transformation.
Yeah, which isn't to knock those stories you just mentioned for being more conventional. It's just very interesting how Yoko Taro turned it on its head.
Right. And then Atonement, collecting the keys to the castle. Atonement in other stories would be, well, I have to get revenge on the person who killed my loved one. No, Atonement in this story is getting the means with which to move forward. And then Return, Gift of the Goddess, all of that's turned on its head because of the process that Nier has to undergo with self-sacrifice and refusal to return. All of that, again, is turning it backwards. And we don't even get to see the true return, the end of the story, because ending E kind of ends on itself, a cliffhanger, which is ironic.
It's a cliffhanger that is kind of never really resolved, if we're being honest.
You have to play a Japanese-only mobile game it's called Sino Alice to hear what happened to them. And sorry, Yoko Taro, you can't get me to do that. Sorry, as much as I love you.
I love you, but I ain't busting out an emulator for that, Yoko Taro. But yeah, I think it's safe to say we've said all we want to say about the story. Would you say so?
The only thing else I would have to add, which is would be the appreciating this boundless berserker Evangelion level of literary depth. Putting my appreciation there, as well as my favorite theme in all of fiction, which is the struggle to survive in a cruel world. That's one of the main themes of it. Nier's world does not give a singular fuck who lives or who dies.
No.
You have this lovely boatman character who gets offed. In most other stories, you'd find a way to narrowly save him. Nope, you were too late. He was dead before you even got there. Fuck.
Yeah, it is a very, very, very cruel world that they live in, which continues over into Automata, if I am not mistaken.
All right, well, that's all I have to say about the story. We talked about that for like a half hour, 45 minutes.
Oh, dude, we went way longer.
That was 1 hour and 24 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I've got. Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of game that Nier is, right?
Yeah, well, we're talking about a 40-hour RPG here, so that's kind of to be expected.
Ain't it? Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Although there was more like 20, I think, without all the extra playthroughs.
Yeah, but getting the extra playthroughs are what gives you the extra context for everything.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything else, Flame, or do you think we're good to move on to gameplay now?
No, I think we've exhausted everything about the story.
But yeah, so now we can actually finally talk about the game part of this game. And so,
You can press buttons to do things. Who would have thought?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Such a cool concept.
Like I mentioned earlier, this is a action RPG essentially. And it is a redoing of the original game, which which was a fair bit more clunky, didn't really flow as well. But Nier Replicant, combat-wise, it goes incredibly smoothly. Like, it feels good to do all the different, like, action combos. It feels good to get level ups and improve your stats, like get new weapons that add to your strength. And it really just has a good flow, honestly, in my opinion. It's not the deepest combat system in the world. In fact, oddly enough, the game I jumped into shortly after Nier Replicant when I played Scarlet Nexus, that game actually has a far deeper combat system than Nier Replicant does. But Replicant works a lot with its simplicity. Like, it's just a there's not much you can say beyond it just being very, very fun in how it plays.
It's simple but clean is how I would describe it, because the thing is that, it does kind of just play. There are only a couple of basic combo strings, but if you know how to game the system, you could play this almost like a friggin' DMC game.
Basically,
I did get to that point. Like, you're only supposed to be able to go through one combo string in the air, or at least that's like what you're led to believe. But I found a way in how to make it so that you could string magic together, and you could basically get almost like 10 attacks off in the air.
If Devil May Cry and Metal Gear Rising have taught me anything, it is never doubt the combo potential of a white-haired anime swordsman.
Yes, correct. This is the correct take.
Yeah, and like you can find different types of weapons. There's 3 different types. There's one-handed swords, two-handed swords, and spears, and they all play a fair bit differently. Though for me personally, I found myself just constantly sticking with the one-handed sword simply because it's the only type of weapon you can actually use in the first half of the game. So I had just grown so accustomed to it. It's like I might as well just keep trucking along with this style. But I did eventually use the Phoenix Spear in my later playthroughs of the game, because that weapon absolutely shreds through shit in the later portions of the game.
Yeah, I was
Especially
just
when you
saying,
start upgrading it.
I ended up sticking to spears a lot because of how good that one weapon is.
Oh, the Phoenix Spear.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh yeah,
At max output, I think it's like 700 damage per swing.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous how much damage that thing can do. And yeah, like I said, the combat it's not like you said, Scott, it's very simple, but it's clean. You're not going to be doing the insane shit that you can say like pull off in Bayonetta or something like that. Like, you don't have that much potential for all the different attacks you can do, but it just feels smooth. It feels good to hit things. And a lot of that is simply down to the fact that it based a lot of its combat off of what Automata set in place. And Automata was designed by Platinum Games, which, that'll do it.
Yeah, that would fix it immediately. They're kind of the experts at creating this ridiculous combat system. Although they did serve as the supervisors for the redesign of the game's combat system in the Replicant version.
Yeah, they did do that, yeah. But
which that explains some of the increased levels of depth that went into the into 1.2.
Yeah, and outside of the weapons, you also do have the magic, which Vice can use, which you unlock a lot more of throughout the game. Oddly, I found myself really sticking a lot with actually the first 2 you get. I use Dark Blast and Dark Lance a ton, just because I feel the former is a really good constant damage dealer, and the latter was just a super powerful I push this button, you die attack, basically, just because of how strong Dark Lance is. And I also found myself really liking Dark Whirlwind later, because it causes 4 energy sites to rotate around you, which is not only very good for crowd control, it's a great defensive spell as well.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciated how the game lets you customize all of that stuff on the fly. Because, like, in other action games, like, you would choose your weapon loadout and then you're stuck with it for the fight. Like, this is one of my problems with the first Bayonetta game, was that you picked your loadout and then you were stuck with that, I think, for, like, you couldn't change that mid-encounter.
Yeah.
I think they fixed that in Bayonetta 2. I don't quote me on that, but yeah, being able to change your loadout mid-fight is a big deal to me, just because it keeps things more fresh, more interesting as you're going through the fights.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it also gives you more options, so you can just switch it up if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. I
Like
would.
during the final battle in ending E, I was using Dark Blast mostly, but I switched to the scythes during the segment where you're being swarmed with a shit ton of shades. Just as a simple example off the top of my head.
Yeah, and it really helps as a shield against a lot of those projectiles. I'd probably say one of my only real issues with the combat system was a couple, just really only two little things. If I remember correctly, you need to map, I think, block and evade to certain special command buttons. So if you want to use all your magic spells, you can't have the ability to block and dodge at the same time, which I feel like it would have been better to have that just to give a little more depth to what you can do all at once.
Although, it's actually kind of interesting because it's kind of like a trade-off.
That is true.
Let's face it, you're not going to block very often.
Yeah, that is true. I found myself using the dodge roll way more than blocking, to truth be told.
I just said the dodge roll to the R trigger.
Yeah, same here. That's what I did. That's what I mainly did. And the only other thing I kind of had an issue with was you can actually upgrade your weapons in this game, but it really feels unnecessary. Like, I think I only ever upgraded a weapon once throughout the entire time across all my playthroughs.
It's just like
I think I did sometimes where it's just like, well, I got nothing better to do with this stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, you don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're going for it actively, it can feel kind of fetch questy. I do like the reward though, that every time you upgrade it, you get some more. Like what happened to the previous bearers of the weapon.
That is true. Yeah, that was actually really cool.
And they actually kept that over into Automata. And going into the lore behind all of that, actually a lot of these weapons are from the protagonist of Drakengard, and he brought them along over when he ended up in the real world.
Oh, nice. Yeah, although I guess there is also one teeny tiny little thing that I do take somewhat of an issue with that I'm not really sure if the game itself tells you this. It's probably something we should have mentioned earlier. In order to get to ending C and ending D, you need to have gotten every single weapon in the game before you get to those endings, and I don't think anything in the game tells you that.
Yeah, that's stupid. But at least I knew about it.
Yeah.
I think that if you get to the, I'm not sure what happens. I have to assume the game tells you, because I don't think they'd just let you get ending B again, would they?
Well, I think it does tell you at the, I think it actually might tell you at the end of ending B to get all of the weapons, because
I'm pretty sure it does at some point, but like...
Yeah, like the different routes aren't hidden. Like, it's not just something like where, when you play ending A, the game just ends and, like, you'll only come across ending B, like, if you randomly decide to play the game again. No, when you beat Route A, the game actively tells you, you've completed Route A. Start up the game again to learn even more about the story in Route B. Something like that. But, yeah, that is somewhat of an issue I have, especially because I'm pretty sure if you don't get all the weapons in Young Nier's section, you completely miss them and you cannot get them again. So if you
get the chance to buy them.
Oh, you do. Okay,
Yeah.
I did not. I, honest to God, thought they were a lost cause. That if you didn't get them, you basically should just restart your file all over again.
No. This game could be a bit cruel, but not that cruel.
Okay. Yoko Taro decided, I will go easy on you on this element, young one.
Not doing that would actually.
I will give you emotional pain, not physical pain.
Yeah, that would go from the point from being like, oh, quirky game design to, Okay, actually kind of bad game design.
Yeah, okay, that's actually good. I'm actually really glad you told me that just to verify that. Um, but yeah, and it's actually kind of fun with the combat too. That when you play as Kaine, she actually plays pretty similarly, but she does actually have her own special moves when you play as her, which are named after swears.
I wish that what they did. This might have been too much to code or whatever, but I kind of wish that when you get her swords after the end of an E playthrough, they let you play as her when you select the weapon.
Oh, that would have been so cool. Or at the very least, I would have liked if you could have equipped her special moves to Nier.
That would have made that to do that though. They would have had to set up a means for which Nier becomes an NPC, and I don't think that they could realistically do that.
Yeah, that is definitely true. But yeah, I think we've said a fair bit about what we would need to say on like the gameplay, unless either of you two have anything else to add.
Combat good.
It,
I also like how it seamlessly shifts between one gameplay style to another.
yes, very
Because
much.
there's
So.
there's
like
like
few parts where it's pretty much just like a bullet hell game.
Oh yeah, very true.
they incorporate so many different game design elements into this because there's moments where there's bullet hell, but there's also that one sequence in Emil's place, his living place, where it's played like a Resident Evil game, or there's
His house. Yeah, there's like a lot of different camera angles, like the mansion just being a Resident Evil style fixed camera.
Yeah.
and then there's the stuff like how you could play top down, like it's a top down action adventure game in the basement of his house, or you could have stuff like the visual novel segments, and then there's like moments when the game's played from the side, so this is like a side-scrolling action adventure game.
Yeah, like the little platforming segments in like the desert dungeon.
I actually loved that because to me it felt like it was a smart way of keeping the game fresh. Because if it was just a total 3D action game, like it would have been cool, but the constraints of the combat system that are in place, I felt like they would have added up over time if they didn't shake things up. And Yoko Taro and his team, they were smart enough to recognize that, so they did implement these things where the gameplay shifts around. So it keeps things fresh. I loved it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like it's funny when you say the bullet hell, when you're in the top down segments, like when it starts getting into bullet hell, I'm just sitting there like I didn't pop an Ikaruga by mistake, did I?
Yeah, right.
Because
We're Toho now.
we're not joking, folks.
I have no idea what the hell a Toho is. I just think the girl with the blue hair is cute.
We're not joking, folks. You want an example? Look up the fight with either the Shadow Lord or that giant ball thing in the airy. It is it's straight up a bullet hell. We're not even joking.
Oh, we didn't talk about the area and the lore with that. I think that's the implication there was that they were all Gestalts, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, I genuinely think they were all Gestalt. To go back into story for a little bit. God, this game's story is so good.
This story is never over.
No, it isn't.
No, there are people. Okay, there's a channel out there. I don't know what they're called. I think it's State of the Arc or whatever. But basically, they did like a 20-part series that was like 2 hours a piece per episode, deconstructing and analyzing every tiny piece of the story. And they still didn't cover everything they wanted to by the end.
Yoko Taro is just the embodiment of that image where it's small brain
Never over.
or it's like small pea brain going up to ethereal entity. Yoko Taro was the ethereal entity of writers.
There.
Oh my god. But yeah, like the combat overall is really good. And speaking of another aspect of this game that is really good, so good it is award-winning, the music. Oh my god, the music in this game is amazing.
The music winning the award was such a wake-up call. I was just like, wait a minute, he's doing that review thing. We should meet up and talk about this game.
And actually, it's
Okay, I don't listen to a whole lot of like real music. I listen to game music mostly.
well, game music is real
I'm
music.
You know what I mean, like
Yeah.
go to a store and buy an album or whatever, or like sign up for Spotify Premium. I don't do that shit.
Yeah.
I listen to game music, and if you go into my YouTube feed, like the three things that dominate it are like the modern Persona trilogy, Xenoblade Chronicles,
And
and
Nier. Yeah, the music in this game is it's fantastic. Like it's so good. It's emotional. It really hits you. A lot of the music has choirs as a part of it, which that
They're
is
sung in
like that.
I like the attention to detail how the songs are sung in the language of the ancients.
yeah, it's the language that
Are they?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought it was Latin. I thought they were singing Latin, but no, it's like a made-up language of the ancients.
Which is I think it's supposed to be the language that they spoke in context in Drakengard.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense, actually. But it's like it's genuinely hard to just explain into words just how good the music of this game is. Like, I love the Shadow Lord's theme, the theme when Emil sacrifices himself. I can't listen to the
Kaine's theme, the Salvation theme.
Kaine's theme, the Salvation theme. I cannot listen to the full English lyrics version of the credits theme without crying.
My favorites are like that main field, like directly outside the village.
Oh yeah,
That's a good one.
That's a
Very
really
good
good one. You hear it a lot.
I like the Emil's Mansion theme. I don't know why, I just like it.
Well, probably just because Emil's Mansion is so bizarre in the context of the game.
Yeah, and whatever music plays during that like journal thing that you can do, like it's like
Yeah, the
this
DLC.
weird,
Yeah.
The DLC segment.
like I think it's like this weird techno-ish remix of like one of the battle themes, and it's just like this is way better than it has any right to be, honestly.
Yeah, and that journal segment is actually it doesn't completely forget Nier Gestalt, because in that small little journal side segment you play as Papa Nier, as a cool little shout out to the alternate version of the original game.
Pointed this out when we were talking about this last night, but it may or may not lead to the implication that in the replicant timeline, Papa Nier is actually meant to be the embodiment of his father that we never get to see in the game.
Yeah, very very true, because the journal was written by his mother, which would actually make a lot of sense.
It's interesting then that the music is a remix then, because it's like there's that one. I remember that one joke image is just like where the father was wearing the shirt saying the original, the son, the remix. So who has the remix soundtrack here?
Oh, that's actually pretty funny. But yeah, it's also actually pretty appropriate that Nier Replicant won best soundtrack, because what was the one award that Automata won in the 2017 Game Awards? Best soundtrack.
What did Doom Eternal lose to last year?
Doom Eternal. Oh, and soundtrack? I'm actually not sure what that lost to.
I know it didn't win. I was just like, what? This is a crime.
Yeah.
Looking this up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up too. I'm trying to keep talking, so there's not just a bunch of dead air here. Come on, Wikipedia, don't fail me now.
Just admit it. You have to talk to hear yourself talk. Don't worry, I'm the exact same way.
It's okay. We have the power of video editing.
Game of the year, best. Final Fantasy VII Remake won best music, which, you know what, fair.
You can lose with
fine.
grace. You can lose with grace to that.
Yeah, there is no shame in losing to Nobuo Uematsu.
Honestly, I thought it lost to Last of Us 2.
No, that was one of the.
There's shame with there. there's no shame in losing to that either, because the entire video game media press decided that game was a masterpiece, even though the collective gaming public was either hated it or was meh about it.
Yeah. I think I said it to you before, Scott. Losing to Nier or even Final Fantasy in this case in a best game music contest is like losing to Berserk in a best anime music contest. There is no shame in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is very, very fitting that game won best music, but vocal bullshit, we've been going on about it all this time, should have also won and been nominated for best narrative.
Right.
It's like
oh yeah, another one of my favorite songs, Bipolar Nightmare. I think it's one of the boss battle themes.
Yeah, oh
it just gets the blood pumping so fucking hard. I loved it.
Just the name of that song, Bipolar Nightmare, sounds wicked as hell.
I mean, it leads into the lore implication of what's actually going on there, because it's kind of a bipolar feeling, right? How, like we're the heroes, we're right. Actually, no, you're not.
Sounds like some early 2000s alt rock song or a band or something.
created by Linkin Park.
Well,
no,
if
not
either
thinking
of y'all
about it. That's
listen to
an
the,
awesome band name.
have you listened to the full orchestral arrangement album that they did, like almost a decade ago?
I don't believe I have listened to that.
I didn't know it existed.
Here you go. This is the full orchestral arrangement version of the music of Nier Gestalt and Nier Replicant.
Okay, you know what?
I sent it in the no mic in the Discord.
Yeah, NC note. Put that in the description of the video so the audience can listen.
I just give you your backdrop soundtrack for the video.
But yeah, the music in this game is it's absolutely incredible. And so I guess now we've talked about a bunch of all the main elements of it. And so I guess now we could just mention we could go into any issues that we had with the game overall and then give our general final thoughts on the game itself and any hopes we have for the future. So are there any
I did want to talk about the game's presentation before we moved on.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Sure.
we can go for
a presentation that for me that encompasses like how it looks, how it performs, as well as elements such as the dub, etc.
We already went over the music.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
As part of presentation, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, we could.
And the game no longer looks like ass.
It kind of did, in fact, look like ass before, but it's like going back to the original Xenoblade Chronicles. This kind of looks fucked and cursed now.
Yeah. I wouldn't say the original Nier looked bad, but Replicant definitely boosted up a bit, and it's not like
In some ways, it looks better than Automata's character models, honestly.
In some ways, yeah, it very much does. I mean, I could see some people not being too enthused with the graphics of this game, because this game admittedly graphics-wise did come out at somewhat of a rough time for it, because this came out like a few months after the 9th gen consoles launched. So,
honestly, that doesn't mean much to most people since no one can buy one.
I played this whole game on PS5. I wish to God there was a PS5 version, because the thing is, like, it was just kind of awkward how it was promised a console in a generation with no load times, or next to no load times. And this game is filled to the fucking brink with load times.
Yeah, no, I think
that was deflating.
Yeah, I think the PS5 actually did help with the load times, though, because a lot of them were very, very quick.
Yeah.
Like it
was just kind of deflating, is all.
I mean, like the game's already like 1080p 60 FPS and looks pretty good, so
yeah.
Like if they did make a PS5 version, it'd probably just be like 4K.
In my specific case, that was also deflating, because at that point I had just recently acquired a 4K TV for my PS5 in preparation of getting it. And Nier Replicant was one of the first games that I did a full playthrough on the damn thing with it. So it was just like, oops.
Scott's like, damn it, I could see the polygons.
No, it looks kind of jaggy on a 4K display, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Honestly, It might just be because I don't have the best eyesight, hence why I need glasses. But I don't know, like at 1080p versus 4K, there isn't like that big of a difference, at least for me.
Yeah.
Although I play,
4K does look nicer, obviously, but it's not nice enough to be a huge difference, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But I also only play. How far away am I from the TV right now? It's not very far at all. Shit.
I can
I'm
count
like one body's length away from the TV.
I can count
I can see the pixels at this length.
Scott just like right up to his TV. I can count the cells.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just a problem for my specific situation. For most people, I'm sure that wasn't even a consideration, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I wish that, like, even if it was only like a digital thing, where it's just like, oh, play it and you'll get the PS5 patch or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I would have preferred that.
Yeah.
I understand why they didn't. It was probably a budgetary or a time constraint or whatever. But man, I still kind of wish.
Yeah.
If I had to put my finger on the pulse of what I guess they're gonna do, is maybe like they'll do something like a Nier collection where you get Automata and Replicant together as one package on PS5.
Yeah.
I guess that's how they'll do it, maybe.
Yeah.
I would say at least it's on PC, but it might as well not be.
Yeah. That's another thing we have to talk about. Problems with the presentation. What's the fucking problem with Yoko Taro games consistently being terrible on PC? I played Automata on PC. I played it for the second time. It was the second time I played Automata, and it was for the first time in almost 4 years at that point. And before Replicant had came out, kind of just like to hype myself up, and it was ungodly terrible. I heard that I was prepared to buy Replicant on PC just because it is my preferred platform for third-party games. And then I heard that, nope, in fact, this game is also kind of ass on PC, so, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going with PlayStation from now on for Nier games.
To be fair, I think this is a Square Enix problem across the board, because the news just very recently broke that the PC port of Final Fantasy VII Remake is actually really rough.
Yeah.
So this might not just be a Nier problem.
If I was Square Enix, I would probably look
the PC versions of the Kingdom Hearts games and Neo the War Ends with You are decent, but otherwise.
Yeah. But yeah, the game does overall look and run very well. I guess I would say one of my only issues with it, and it's more just a personal thing, the game has a very, very muted color palette. Like, there aren't...
I think that's deliberate.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's most likely deliberate, the way that's done. But it just
the game wants to, from the onset, wants to get you into a depressive mood for the depressive content you're about to be hit with.
Yeah, I feel like the game may have suffered a bit from what you mentioned a lot, Scott, that the 7th gen muck, like
next gen-itis.
Next gen-itis, where the game looks like piss and shit.
God damn it, Twilight Princess, who pissed on the screen?
Who pissed on the screen? Oh man. Yeah, I was not the other day. It's like almost before No More Heroes 3 came out. I went back and played No More Heroes 2 again, and I got to the stage where you play as Shinobu, and the stage looks like shit. Not because it like looks bad. It actually looks like there's a shit filter big applied.
Yeah, it's all great.
I was just like, yep. This is a certified 7th gen moment.
So it's all the grays and the browns and all, and tan everywhere.
Skyrim, count the colors on screen during a winter storm, and you can't count the HUD. Have fun.
Nier count.
Fallout 3 in New Vegas had it worse.
Nier Replicant count the actually bright colors, and you can't count red.
Shit. Well, I think that they did actually add some color in Replicant 1.2, because it does look a bit more vibrant in points.
Yeah, it does. The forest.
It definitely looks like the piss filter was turned on a lot harder in the original version.
Yeah,
So I think they did better in this version.
Yeah, some things do pop. The red magic pops really well throughout the game. The forest, the forest village actually looks pretty nice.
Yeah, the green vistas as well as like the wild area right outside of town, like they look really nice. I think the muted tone hits at its worst in the desert as well as ironically
the desert does indeed look like desert.
Right, but I mean the town.
Yeah,
the desert town.
Yeah, the town
and
is
also ironically Nier's home village.
Yeah,
even though there's greenery there, it's still like there's still a bit of a piss and shit filter.
A lot of gray brick.
Although when the game was originally designed like that, there was bound to be stuff still left over.
Yeah, and like Scott said, it was very likely an active design choice to make it that muted. Like, I just, I don't mind, like, I'm a fan of a lot of color in the game. Like, I love GBA games, how it looks like a rainbow barfed on the screen with how much color those games have.
Yeah.
but yeah,
we gotta make you see the screen somehow.
That's actually why it was that colorful.
Yeah.
That's why Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance had its color cranked up so much, because you couldn't see shit in Circle of the Moon. But yeah, I do enjoy a lot of color, but I do understand why that decision was made for this game. But other than that, yeah, I do think the presentation is very well handled. I guess
we're kind of getting into negatives here, so I guess we could properly transition into our negatives now.
Yeah, so you guys can go first if you have like any overall like downsides or rough parts you feel the game has.
Okay, can I go first? The ending, getting the other endings is completely stupid, and I'm never doing it again.
Go ahead. I feel like you have an axe to grind here.
Go ahead.
Alright, so like, basically it's like, you beat the game and it's just like, okay, now you play through the last third of it again, but with like a new perspective of all that stuff, but also they make you do it like, 4 times just to get like an extra 5-10 minutes of cutscene aside from those like, random novel sections they like put in throughout.
Yeah,
you have to do so the A playthrough is the first half of the game and the second half of the game, and then B route
is the second half of the game.
Second half of the game, and then you have to do a C route, and that's in the second playthrough of the second half of the game. And the C route, they include extra shit for the. You see the moments with Devil and Popola scheming behind your back, and you also see extra stuff with the fight with the sea monster girl.
Yeah.
And then you have to split your save file at the end to do ending D separately, or else you'll have to do a technically a fourth at that point playthrough to get ending D. And then you have to play about like an hour or 2 hours of the opening again to see ending E.
Yeah, you have to start a brand new file.
It can get exhausting. It can get very exhausting.
Yeah,
because like they absolutely could have just made it like one. Just like the one, honestly.
I don't think
like there aren't like any like alternate endings or anything. It's just the same ending, but they just show you more of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have made it just the one front to back, but 1 second.
No, I mean like you do the first playthrough to finish the game, and then you play through it again with the new perspective and stuff.
Yeah, that's actually something I mentioned to Scott like a day or two.
You think that ending C could have been erased, basically?
Yeah, I that's actually something that I mentioned to Scott. I feel like B being its own separate playthrough didn't need to happen. I feel like when you played through the game for a second time, then you could have just gotten the choice between killing Kaine or erasing yourself, instead of beat the game once, then you gotta beat it again, then you gotta beat it a third time to get to the choices.
Yeah. Like, you only have to replay, like, the last third of the game, but it's still just like, ugh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, granted.
Ending B reveals that Emil survived the blast.
Yeah, it does, which leads into him being in Automata.
But again, like, doing it, like, you really only should have, it really only should have been the one extra thing instead of multiple.
Yeah, I do.
Because you're playing the same game again.
Right.
It's just like, this is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I
can totally get you.
Yeah,
I do understand the value of splitting C and D's ending, though.
Oh yeah, I
So
definitely
the way you
agree.
could probably do that is like you consolidate B and C into one, but you do include the alternative branches for C and D.
Yeah.
Right, so you would basically erase ending B, right? And you include the cutscene where Emil survives in the before you arrive at the Shadow Lord's final battle. Okay, so it would be endings A through D then, and basically you just are told to save into an alternate spot. Like maybe the game straight up makes you do it. Save your game into an alternate slot here before the final battle.
Yeah, I agree there, and I definitely agree with Flame that it's not necessarily my biggest complaint personally, but like I understand why a lot of people would be annoyed by this, having to play the game.
Especially if you didn't know to split your save for endings C and D.
Yeah, and you gotta come. Yeah.
I at least did know to do that.
Yeah, God help you if you do ending D first.
At that point, you just look it up on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. It like granted, the other playthroughs do go by much quicker because you can skip cutscenes and you still carry over your stats. So by ending C and D, you're ripping through everything without even trying.
Yeah, but like it's still annoying.
Mm-hmm. I totally get you, Flame.
Yeah,
I think they recognize that this was a major fault of the game design, because when it came to Automata, they actually completely changed the structure of the alternate ending approaches, because now they're just like straight up alternate story branches. Ending A is 2B's story. Ending B is 9S's story. And 9S does cover the same events as what happens with 2B, but it's from his perspective. There's a completely different combat system in play, and also there are multiple points baked throughout the story where you split up and you see alternate adventures. Ending C is a completely new story where you play as the rival character.
Yeah, that is a lot more interesting because it's actually different.
And then ending D is like you actually if you beat ending C, then you unlock what's called chapter select, which lets you go into the other see the other things from alternate perspectives, so that you can get endings A through Z. But you don't have to. Most of them are non-canon.
Yeah, I think like
ending D is a branch of what happens at the end of ending C, where you choose something else, and then ending E is the true ending that you unlock, which is a completely different thing. Which is just like a half-hour gameplay segment that you get to round it all off.
Yeah.
They definitely recognize that there was a problem with the structure of the design going into Automata, and I do think that it's a good thing that they learned the lesson there.
Yeah, I
do have one defense of this structure, though, and it was something that came to my mind just recently.
All right.
Which was that I think that, as shitty as it is, I think I get some of why it is this way. Which is that I think there's a little bit of value to it if you're like a player like me, where you're like super duper crazy into the story. By being forcefully made to witness these events multiple times, like you play the first ending A, you get everything, and then you play ending B, and you get all this additional context to everything. For me as a player, I liked ending B, but it wasn't until ending C, the C route, that I actually fully digested everything, and I took the moment to think about how, yeah, Nier and his friends are kind of in the wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah,
I totally get though how that's a big design problem. Though.
Yeah, I can kind of see it in a like it's one of those things where like I totally get your argument as well, and I in a number of ways definitely agree with you. I can just also see why someone would say sometimes it's not worth sacrificing the player's time, patience, and the crux of the game itself to try and hammer in a message. Like, that's actually a big complaint many people, including myself, have with Undertale. In the genocide route, you have to just keep running around areas over and over, killing everything until everything is gone, and just like, this isn't fun. And like, I get that it's supposed to hammer in the message, but I'm not having a good time.
Right. Right, it's that kind of balance that you have to strike, and I don't know if I don't know at what point we're going to get to that in game design where it's just like we can hammer in a message without feeling, overly preachy. That's a unique design issue that is up to philosophers and game designers far bigger brained than us to figure out.
Yes, we need to give Yoko Taro a few weeks in his meditation chamber to figure it out.
AKA getting fucked up on a bunch of alcohol.
Yeah, he just goes to the heads of score absolutely wasted. I got this. Listen, I got this great idea.
It's like has a wine cellar in his basement, and you're just like, guys, I gotta go to work.
Anyways, Flame, I guess my whole point there is that I completely agree with your criticism, but I do understand the structural reason why it is the way that it is on some level.
Because it's just like, okay, I get why it is the way it is, but playing it is annoying, and it's a video game.
Right.
Yeah, I totally get that. Just like to imagine Scott.
And it's just kind of like, it basically like conditions you to never want to play the game ever again because you don't want to go through this, like the last portion of the game that you've already played like 4 times.
That's completely fair. If I want to experience Nier again, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to play it again. I think that I might, considering like my main enjoyment of the game comes from the story, I might just make the choice to sit down and like watch a cutscene compilation that's like 2 or 3 hours long.
Yeah,
that might be what I do again.
Yeah, although I personally would also add the point of I feel that simply modern video games are a lot harder to just replay in general, just because they're a lot bigger, a lot longer, so you don't have
Depends
as
on
much.
the game.
Yeah, like it's something I mentioned to I probably mentioned it to you guys and a lot of my other friends. For as much as people love Persona 5, how many people are honestly going to play that game front to back more than once in their life? Just because of how long
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Me, because I'm crazy in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles. Most other people, they'll never play it again, and I respect that.
I also respect that, but also I played Xenoblade 1 and 2 like twice each. Well, more like 2.5 for the first game, but...
Xenoblade Chronicles 1 6 times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, it's just something I personally felt, because it's something that I noticed a lot with more modern games, like even more modern games that like I absolutely love, like I absolutely adore like stuff like Mario Odyssey or Mario Galaxy or like later Zelda games, but I don't know how much I'm gonna go back to replay those, whereas I can pretty much pop in like Sonic or Mega Man from the NES or the SNES and the Genesis, and I can play those all the time. Like I've probably beaten all of those games like at least like 10 times each.
Right. I mean, that goes into the
talking
design
about new
of
games with a lot of replay value. I kind of want to play Metroid Dread again already.
I'm going to
twice within the span of the first week it came out.
I'm going to sometime during this break.
I should at some point as well, though. I really should. I'm debating whether or not I want to get into Harmony of Dissonance after I just beat Circle of the Moon, or if it's finally time to put my nose to the grindstone on Tales of Arise.
We're getting a little bit off topic here.
Yeah, sorry.
The magic of editing.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you tell we're friends, ladies and gentlemen? We like to talk a lot.
Although, like, I don't know, like, it was kind of relevant just because it's like... This is not a game I would want to replay, but here are some that I would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that conversation was still relevant. But yeah, you do make a good point, Flame. There's definitely there's definitely a harshness with replayability with this game, where it's like, unless you really just feel like doing an ending A playthrough, it's hard to tell yourself, oh, I'm gonna play through this game 3.5 more times again.
And I would absolutely like never go past ending A ever again.
I think that as weird as it is,
or something.
As weird as it is, I think that hammering it into your head to never play this again, that might actually be the point. That might actually be the point, because the original version of the game, it ended on the note of you deleting your save data.
Yeah.
That might actually be the notion that they want. It's just like, okay, you've experienced this, you've re-experienced this, now you don't ever have to experience this again.
Kind of like...
I think that might actually be the point.
Kind of like...
weird as that is.
Yeah, kind of like, I can't believe that this is the third time I've brought it up in this review. Undertale, when you get the true pacifist ending, if you load up the game again, Flowey's like, hey, you know, I get that you really like this game, but like, all these characters are happy now, so could you just like, let us just be? I totally get it if you want to play again, but I think it would be best if you just go do something else.
No, I'm playing Genocide now.
You monster.
Or if you do Genocide all the way in Undertale, I think I'm at this point, I'm considering the parallels here. I'm thinking that Toby Fox might have been inspired. Anyways, I think that that's interesting how Yoko Taro plays with the whole notion of the format of gaming itself, because asking the player to erase their save file in almost any other context would be taken as a absolutely absurd, absolutely ridiculous proposition that no other gamer would commit to.
Yeah.
But
unless you back up your save first.
Right, but I found myself, even if I was playing the original Nier, I find myself so attached to these characters and to Kaine and to the others that I feel like even without ending E, I would be tempted to do it.
Yeah.
I think I honestly would still be able to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, funnily enough, I did mention to you before that I even somewhat considered, before you explained it to me, Scott, that I somewhat did consider ending E somewhat of a negative. Not because it was bad, I really did like it, but I respected the balls on the original Nier so much to say, you want the true ending? Nuke your save file. I respected the hell out of the game for doing that. And then it's
the
like...
only reason I bring that up is because for me, my criticism of the game design would be to delete your save data. That's my criticism of the game design, my main one. But the weird thing is, as fucked up a design decision as that is, I find myself agreeing with it somehow.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Like it's something you would normally never agree to. But
that's like a major taboo. Like, play with your save data.
Yeah. Honestly, deleting your save data in the original Nier is almost like the equivalent of closing the back of a book physically in real life, where it's like
plays into the metaphor of how the logo of the game is a book.
Oh god, it's getting meta. Insert Inception sound effect here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's another major...
It's a book. I'm looking this up right now.
What?
Yeah, it's Grimoire Nier. Not Grimoire Nier. Grimoire Weiss. He's the logo.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, Grimoire Weiss is the logo of the game.
Oh, okay. I thought, like, the actual, like, typography of, like, the logo was, like, a book or something.
Oh, no. No.
I was like, how did I miss this?
How is this possible?
Yeah, so yeah, that's my major criticism, is that the game asks you to delete your save file, and that's a major taboo of game design. But despite that fact, I still find myself in this conflicted state where it's just like, yeah, that's a major game design sin.
Yeah.
But also, he's kind of right to commit that sin. What the hell?
Yeah, and also it's especially rectified with Replicant because you get it back. Like, you get it back this time.
Right, I feel like I'd be a lot harsher on the design decision if it wasn't for Replicant adding ending E.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely understand.
Although you'd have to know, there's some poor bastard out there that named their character some stupid joke name that they never remembered, and so when the game tells you to type in the save data name of your old save file, you can't enter it in, and there's not a goddamn guide on this planet that will help you with that.
Oh no.
Okay, imagine someone playing the original Nier, and then they get the true ending. They delete their save file, and then the power goes out before they can watch the cutscene.
Oh no.
That's probably happened to someone too.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember when I did my E playthrough, when I loaded up my second file, I actually named the character Nier again, but I spelled it like the actual word.
Oh, here's another criticism. The game's I experienced a glitch. I don't know if this is like a 1 in 1 million thing.
Oh, this.
And I was just unlucky, but I experienced a glitch. When I watched the E ending and played through it the original time, it was like sometime during the summer, and I did not get the achievement. I did not get the updated title screen. I did not get Kaine's swords. I got my save data back. I didn't get any of that shit. So that leads me to believe that there's a glitch on the PlayStation version with that. And for me, it was just like, well, that sucks, but I'm not going to bother with this again. And then we had this whole idea of doing this podcast. It's like, well, I guess it's a perfect excuse to go and try that again. And that's what happened. I did do I loaded up my deep ending save again, and did sacrifice the save data again, and then watched the whole E ending again.
Yeah. But you said you had no problem replaying it. I know. I
didn't think I was going to, but it was an important experience in order to brush up.
Oh yeah.
So there might be some technical problems with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm generally more forgiving of glitches though, just because, there's no matter how well coded your game is, there's gonna be some fucking stupid hiccups that people miss.
Yeah, I'm forgiving of them to an extent. Like, if there was, a ton of glitches, it's just like, come on.
Like the Sonic Colors Ultimate, for example. We're not forgiving that. We're not forgiving that. For my shit, where for whatever reason I didn't get the trophy for ending E, I'm not as mad as I should have been.
Cyberpunk sweats profusely.
Breath of the Wild is a pretty stable, relatively glitch-free game. And then you get into speedrunning.
Well, speedrunners always find glitches in a game.
Yeah. But, Breath of the Wild is, particularly broken.
But, yeah.
You don't even really play the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Flame on the thing with playing multiple playthroughs. But it's like, though, probably one of the bigger issues I have is, I just feel like some of the areas are a little too wide and open for their own good with not a ton to do in them. I'll say this right now, early part of the game, it's difficult, but for the love of God, beat the boar quest so you can get the boar to ride around the overworld. Because
yeah, that's the one quest
what now?
There's a boar that you could ride the back on in order to move around the overworld quickly.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you poor...
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss.
You poor soul.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
You poor soul. But yeah.
Just everywhere.
That's another game design decision that I would have a problem with. I really do like the game's world, and I do like getting immersed in the atmosphere of it, and I like how big it feels, despite the fact that it is really linear and straightforward. But I do have a problem with it, which is that the fast travel system does not unlock until halfway into the second half of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you do get it, it has to follow the logical progression of the map, because this is a game world that is based in logic, unfortunately. And because of that, you can't just teleport into the middle of an area with no river next to it.
Yeah.
As much as I wish that you could.
Yeah, that's admittedly kind of rough. Although I think they actually do make a joke about that at one point. Like I remember in the factory, like when Nier is complaining, like, I wish we could just like warp back out of here, and Vice is like, well, you could do that, but if you smack into anything, you'll explode into pieces when you do it. And Nier's like, oh, okay, let's not do that.
That's a reference to
Walking it
Earthbound.
is.
That is a reference to Earthbound.
Oh, really?
Oh my god.
Just put that together. That is a reference to Earthbound.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Yeah, I thought that was funny when they addressed it, but yeah, a quick travel system definitely would have been good to have in this game. And
They addresses that in Automata as well by making every save point a fast travel point.
oh, okay, that's really good actually. And I did mention it before. One of the bigger issues I have is just the giant segments of reading. Like I think it's quirky.
Maybe if it was voiced.
Yes, if it was
Oh,
voiced.
that would have been wonderful.
If it was fully voiced, I would mind it a lot less. But there are points where it's like, God damn, did I pop in a game or a book with this? Because it's like, wow, I'm reading a lot.
Well, I don't mean to be like that wishy-washy guy, but I'm the kind of guy where if there's like a problem with the game, I want to think about it like a critical design solution to it.
Oh, I do too.
So that's probably why I'm going back and forth here. Sorry, guys.
Oh no, it's fine.
That's fine. I usually try to think that way, but you can't always come up with solutions.
Yeah,
Right.
it's why
Sometimes games are just broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's why I'm honestly not that. Well, it's honestly why I don't have many issues with this game overall. Like, the issues I have are at most nitpicks, or they're ones that I realize are a result of budget limitations.
Like, yeah, they said before that this came out in interviews. They had the budget of jack shit.
Yeah,
They
it's
had like some
like you said.
the development studio who made this game went out of business after they produced this. By the way,
oh, that sucks.
the original Nier, I should say.
Oh, yeah, the original. Oh, yeah, I do remember you mentioning that to me before. But yeah,
Yeah, their last two games were canceled. Nier Replicant on PS3 in Japan was the last thing they ever got out.
Yep. And then, but yeah, I do. Yeah, and even with Replicant, the remaster / remake, it's not something like it. It's probably not something like where Square would hand Yoshi P a blank check for Final Fantasy 16. Like, they had budget limitations they would need to confine to. So you have these big.
Those limitations, I guarantee you, they no longer exist now for whatever the future of Nier is, considering that Automata did so well that Square Enix is actively considering it turning into one of its flagship main IPs.
They probably should. I mean, it's gotten such a huge name now. Like, I mean, we
And
mentioned
its current flagship main franchises are
Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest.
Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Kingdom Hearts, and Tomb Raider.
Yeah. Yeah, I could totally see Nier becoming like the fifth pillar of Square Enix, especially because, like, you know, we were mentioning graphics earlier. My God, I cannot wait for Nier 3 with the current gen graphics. Oh my God.
Take their time.
Yes.
Also, don't make it look like poop, like what's going on with Babylon's Fall.
Oh.
That hurts me on an emotional level.
Okay, there's a lot more issues with Babylon's Fall than just its graphics. That game is
It looks like poo.
it's poo on a plate. God damn it! Who brought back the 7th generation again with this game?
It doesn't look like it doesn't look like a poo filter. It looks like a kaleidoscope filter. So it's worse. tangential discussion, but that's just because I have to logically assume that Platinum Games would be the developer of a Nier 3.
Oh, probably. I imagine. Like, and Yoko Taro will probably get on that sooner or later, because
I have a concept, actually, an interesting idea. What if instead of Nier 3 we get... Okay, maybe it's not... Maybe it couldn't be called this, because Nier 1.2 blah 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 actually is the square root of Nier 1.5, which alludes to ending E being the connection to Automata. But maybe we get a game that's a sequel to Nier, and like a direct sequel, and it follows what happened to them after the events of the defeat of the Shadow Lord.
Oh, so like a midquel.
Yeah.
They could do that, although a part of me also feels like they don't need to, because you don't get clear answers on what happens to everybody after this other than a meal, but like you can kind of just infer what would happen to all of them, because it's just
And try to live their lives as peacefully as possible, and then eventually
the Black Scroll
succumb to the Black Scroll, sadly.
Yeah, that's basically what would happen. Yeah, so
kind of off a track here. Does other issues, side quests fucking suck.
Oh yeah, that's
it has 7th gen RPG-itis, which is that the side quest design is trying to follow the design template of MMOs, but in doing so, they suck all the life out of them.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I 100% agree with you on. The side quests in this game are not very good.
There's only a handful of them that are decent.
Yeah, the one where there are some that are actually pretty decent. Like the one where the man with his dog the dog who tries to get an herb to help the man who's sick, but you find the dog dead with the herb in its mouth. If either of you played that one. And then you find that the man himself had passed away as well when you eventually come back. Did either of you play that one?
I did. No.
Oh, I heard Flame's pain through the mic. What were you gonna say?
The quests involving the lighthouse lady.
Yeah.
Those were a little bit memorable, if only because of how much of an asshole she was.
Yeah, she
Was that optional?
Yeah, you could leave. She'd bitch at you, but you could leave.
I thought that was required.
I thought that was required too. Well, no, I actually do think it is required, because if you try to leave, she just yells at you to come back.
Oh, wait, no, it's only required the first time. On subsequent playthroughs, you can leave.
Oh, okay. It's like, wow, Nier, you're an asshole.
Yeah, another problem that people have with this game, I don't know how to feel about it. The character designs. Does fall into classic Final Fantasy-itis, where some of the characters do look stupid.
Yeah.
And they did actually cite this as one of the things they tried to improve in Automata. But honestly, like, Nier is interesting to me in that it's kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where like you can represent the two extremes of RPGs, and the other extreme would be Strangers in Paradise, where the characters just look stupid for the other reason, which is that they're bland.
Yeah.
And Nier, the characters look stupid because it's trying too hard to be eccentric.
Yeah,
honestly, between the two extremes, I think I would prefer looking stupid because the characters are trying to look eccentric.
Yeah,
that's just me.
I do agree there, but even then, like, you said they tried to tone it down for Automata, but then again, how much porn of there is 2B's ass again?
Okay, but she is like more.
You get an achievement for looking up her skirt.
Oh yeah, that's another complaint that people have, is that the fact that if you look up Kaine's skirt 10 times, she kills you and you get an achievement. I think the point of that.
I was talking about Automata.
They do it again. They do it again.
I think that that point defeats itself though in the case of Replicant, because the thing is with Replicant, she literally kills you for doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a reward. you've lost progress. She killed you. In other words, it's the game telling you not to do that.
Go to horny jail.
Basically, but also I can do somewhat understand some people saying, I do give the game credit for saying, Kaine dresses in her overly sexualized outfit. I mean, it's something that even Nier and Vice recognize immediately when they first.
Is the woman in her underwear?
Yeah, exactly. Nier says that. I just imagine him trying not to blush, but I can also see, they say, it's because, Kaine dresses like that to try and bring out her more effeminate qualities because she's self-conscious about being intersex, which, fair, but then you can also see people saying just as easily, was that just an excuse for Yoko Taro to draw a cute anime girl in a showy outfit?
Honestly, either way you go with that is a dicey discussion point, because if you go at the point that Yoko Taro is horny, then it gets into the problem of, well, how legitimate is the rest of his writing then? Or if you go the other direction, which is that it's about her femininity, then you get into the problem with how it conflicts with the deconstruction of the strong heroine archetype.
Yeah.
Because at that point she is trying to make some peace with her femininity, which doesn't necessarily go with that concept as well. So
yeah,
there is an actual writing criticism to be had of it. I personally don't necessarily agree with it, but that's also because Kaine is my favorite character.
Yeah. I don't know if I entirely agree on the second part, because I could just see it I don't necessarily see, Kaine wanting to look more like a woman, as a way of counteracting her strong female archetype. I just see that as her being self-conscious about this condition she has, and it makes her kind of feel uncomfortable, so she wants to more associate herself with the gender that she identifies herself with, which I think is a totally fair way for any human being to feel.
Okay, that's an interesting way of going about it. Like I said, my whole thing with that criticism is I'm kind of just hands off about it myself.
Yeah,
I can take it or leave it myself.
Oh yeah, I agree too. You only look into it if you want to look into it. You don't have to.
It says we say that, but then there are people that have made 2-hour videos deconstructing why Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is sexist, despite the fact that all of the ridiculous character designs were done mostly by women.
Don't you know Booba is evil?
Although that goes into the broader discussion of sexuality in games and whether or not the game should be allowed to have sexual content or not.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm personally in teams that they should, because games are have always been violent. Combat is one of the most defining gameplay mechanics of all time, because the expression of conflict is the main way we can convey a lot of gameplay ideas.
Yeah, and it also just gets into the topic of the Western world's more prudishness towards sexuality, where versus violence, where we have no problem with something like Mortal Kombat existing. Meanwhile, oh god, Pyra has big tits. Oh, it's evil. Get rid of it.
You can see. Oh god, you can see some of Kaine's ass. Oh, the humanity.
Oh, the oh god, people are feeling a natural attraction that is literally the reason why the human race continues to exist. Oh god.
Quickly hide the adults.
Quickly hide the adults. Yeah, for me, it's obviously, my whole opinion on this has been you can. I don't know. I don't understand why it is that the Western world is so sex phobic. Honestly,
yeah.
My favorite game, one of my favorite games of all time, is Bayonetta 2. Mm-hmm. That has extremely gritty, graphic, and violent content in it, where you're watching her violently disembowel angels to pieces, and also she is very sexy while doing it.
Yeah, and even then, go ahead.
And obviously she got a lot of backlash to that, and people called her, quote, a fighting fuck toy. But the
Yeah.
thing is, like, I felt that worked in her specific case because it was through the embracing her sexuality is a big part of what made her strong.
Exactly.
So I feel like when we take this reductionist approach to sexual content in media, we fail to examine the benefits that can be extracted from it.
Yeah, it just ties.
In this specific case of Nier, the benefits of having that sort of sexual content is an examination of a character's sexuality from the perspective of their intersex identity, which is what they were born with. That's an examination that basically no other JRPG has done.
Yeah, a lot of it simply falls into the issues of how the Western world thinks, oh, hot women can't also be like kick-ass or tough characters, despite the fact that really the first female character in gaming history to get a lot of attention, Samus Aran, is incredibly attractive, and she is still an absolute badass. And it also gets into the general hypocrisy of the anti-sex mindset of how with sexualizing women, oh, it's a bane on humanity, but then meanwhile you've got stuff in you got like an anime, you got characters like Goku, Jotaro, and Baki who are these absolute brick houses who are completely unrealistic to male bodies unless you work for the WWE, and nobody has an issue with it.
Right, like they are absolutely like the female dream, but apparently they're not a problem.
Exactly.
It's a very dicey discussion that I feel like, honestly, I don't even know if like Western criticism as an institution is mature enough to handle it, honestly.
Yeah, but three dorks talking about a JRPG over a Discord call are.
No, we're not either. We absolutely are not. But that's a discussion that will be ongoing long after we're dead.
Oh yeah, very very much so. But to get back onto the focus of Nier itself, are there any other real issues you guys have with the game? Because, like I said, for me, a lot of it is just, it's only like either very, very minor nitpicky stuff, or it's stuff that I recognize, yeah, it's kind of a downside, but I understand why it is this way.
I have one issue, and it's a tangential issue. It's not an issue of the game itself. It's a tangential issue that the game itself is related to. Okay.
All right.
I mentioned this in our Discord call. I guess we could call this the pre-show.
The pre-show.
Which was yesterday.
That was my bad. I wasn't ready.
Which would be that.
I mean, to be fair, we didn't discuss the time very much.
Yeah.
This game is connected to that whole era of Japanese criticism, or I should say criticism of Japanese media, where it seemed as though the West was hyper-fixated on its gritty, realistic stories, and it put down media that dared to have heart or dared to be goofy with reckless abandon. And if you go into the Metascore for Nier for Xbox 360, it is...
Like a 68, I think.
68. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I could check if you want me to.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. That's it again.
Nier for PS3. Okay, Nier for PS3. It's a 68 on Meta.
Yeah.
In what universe is this game a 68, even with its prominent issues such as the multiple replays?
Yeah, definitely not.
What universe is that? What universe is that as 68?
Yeah.
And it goes up almost 20 points into Nier Replicant.
Yeah, like if I check the...
And what universe is this at plus 20 on the score? Okay, this is a really good remake, a really good remaster, or whatever. But it is not plus 20 to the score.
Yeah.
So this either gets into a discussion of, is Nier Replicant 1.2 the greatest remake of all time to elevate a game by like 20 points, or was Nier when it originally came out severely underrated because of what honestly felt like pseudo-racist tendencies within games media?
Yeah, I can kind of agree there, because I do understand what you're getting at. As someone who grew up in the 7th generation, that was definitely a thing, and that's why you didn't really see as many big quirky titles rise to the surface during that time unless they were on the Wii.
Exactly.
Yeah, Nintendo was for babies, and Japanese games were
terrible, even if they were good.
Despite the fact that was absolutely hypocritical, because they were giving stuff like Mario and Zelda constant 9s and 10s, which are Japanese games.
Right. And that's a tangential issue I have with this game, because I feel like this game is a full encapsulation of everything that went wrong with games media and criticism in that era. And as I love this game, I love what it managed to achieve, and I love what they pulled off with the shoestring budget. But I just felt like it brought out some of the worst in people when it originally came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a shame. That's a shame that is part of this game's legacy.
Yeah. Not really a fault of the game itself.
It's not a fault of the game at all itself. In a perfect world, that wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
It's just something. It's like a blight. It's a blight on the legacy of something that should be appreciated and revered. It's a sad thing.
I wouldn't say as much anymore because the treatment of it back then did suck, but now we have Replicant, which is absolutely beloved. It got great reviews across the board from both critics and audiences. So maybe Replicant could kind of be seen as like a redemption arc from what happened with the original.
For sure. And I think that in that time since then, obviously the world has matured a lot. So
definitely.
Maybe we can. Maybe come Nier 3, we won't have any of that bullshit. Because we did still have some with Automata.
Yeah, probably a little bit with Automata, but I think now that everyone realizes, oh shit, this is a masterpiece, we can put that behind us going forward.
Right. It's similar to how.
Like, it luckily seems to be a much less of an issue now.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully Xenoblade can escape that with Xenoblade 3, because
I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is... I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the modern manifestation of what Nier was in the back. Back when it came out.
It kind of did, because when you were describing all that, I was like, wow, I am getting deja vu to Xenoblade 2.
Right. I think
Xenoblade 2.
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the modern manifestation of what Nier was when it came out, which is to say that it is a game that it reviewed okay, and it had fans that were appreciative, but there were people that were very vocally hated it for stupid reasons for many years after it came out. Yeah. So hopefully we get Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition in a decade's time that erases retroactively most of that problem, most of that kickback.
Well, hopefully if this pattern repeats, that means Xenoblade 3 is going to be like a 95 on Metacritic, and it's gonna absolutely blow people's socks off if 2 is the original Nier, and that'll mean 3's Automata.
Yeah.
Good ending.
The good ending.
Yeah, I would probably say to go into one last little nitpick for myself personally, I love the story of this game so much. It is absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see more of this world from Automata. My only issue with it is, and it's something I've kind of brought up a bit, I feel like if it wants to be connected to Drakengard, it should have done a better job of making that apparent.
You know what? That's actually kind of a fair criticism.
Because,
like, maybe they could have replayed the ending sequence in, like, one of the endings. Like, if you get ending A, like, the after-credit stinger would be replaying the cutscene from Drakengard's ending.
Yeah, because I mentioned it earlier, there's tons of fans even today who don't even know Drakengard exists, let alone that it's linked to Nier.
Yeah.
So it's like
there was the visual novel segment in the forest, which does have some connotations with Nier, or Drakengard. Because in the forest, they're talking about the Red Eye stuff. Basically, that's a connection to Drakengard, because in Drakengard, basically, you could, like, bind your soul with a mythological entity in exchange for something to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to give up something.
Yeah, I think...
And in the case of what happened in Nier's world is that when the connection was established between Drakengard and Nier's worlds, what happened was that people that were exposed to this stuff, the magic, I think it was called Meso, it would result in people, they have to make a choice. They would be in contact with a god, And if they said no, they would turn into salt. If they said yes, they'd turn into a red-eyed, like a zombie of sorts.
Yeah, basically. And then, which is why Nier's world.
Basically, that was what actually caused the end of the world.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's like, I feel like I kind of wish they made that a little more clear. Maybe if at some point, I don't know if there's ever any plans to do a Drakengard 4, if Yoko Taro...
I doubt it, with how beloved and how majorly focused Nier is. The most that I could see maybe is a remake, like I said, call it Nier Drakengard, composed of 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, not 1 and 2, excuse me, 1 and 3.
Yeah, maybe link things up a little bit together. Like, maybe, I don't know if the time would match up perfectly, but maybe even just adding one little scene, like if they remake Drakengard 1, like in the joke ending, you know, when the dragon is falling and disintegrating along with Kaim and like the mother beast or whatever I think it was called, maybe show in Tokyo, maybe show a young Nier and Yona looking up at the sky as that's happening.
Oh, that could have been cool.
I feel like even that would do a really good job of linking the games together. Like, I don't know if maybe if I don't know if the time frame matches up there perfectly, but I feel like just a little something better to hook Drakengard to Nier, just to give everybody better context for what's happening and why it's happening.
Well, how long have we been going here? Like 2.5 hours, something like that?
I'm at
hours,
like
36 minutes.
like 2:46 for me.
Man.
So
Exhaustive discussion of this game, but honestly, it warrants it.
There's
a lot to get into with this one.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait for our Pokemon Legends Arceus review, boys.
I mean, at least we won't be talking about the story of that for like an hour and a half.
Honestly, it's a JRPG, so we should have expected that going in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure at least half of this video is gonna be the plot.
God, imagine talking about the plot of Super Mario Brothers for that long.
So I guess just any closing thoughts, you two?
Game is good.
Game good.
Yeah, game.
I think that this is like one of the few times in gaming where there's like the good end, right?
Yeah.
Because it felt like for a while there, Yoko Taro said, like, going into Replicant, he didn't think it was going to succeed because he said that, obviously Automata was a fluke. My work doesn't sell. But then this one did well.
So,
and I think that this is a testament to the value of persistence and the belief in one's dreams, because Yoko Taro has been, and his team and his friends and his peers, they've believed in this vision all the way since Drakengard 1, since the PS2, and they had to stick with this idea, this concept of this like intentionally disjointed style of storytelling, where, like, you know, I gave this description of how this game basically works. Is basically Yoko Taro will present you with a carrot, but meanwhile the McDonald's is on fire in the background. You're gonna follow the carrot.
yeah.
Wait a minute, the McDonald's is on fire. And that's how his story structure works. And they believed in this concept for so long, and I think that it really is happy and a really heartwarming outcome that it finally did work out for not only just them, but also Square Enix and the gaming industry at large, that it finally panned out after so long.
Yeah.
That they finally found the success that they were looking for, that they lived their dreams, quite literally.
And all it took was a cute anime android girl with an angelically crafted ass.
God. Maybe.
I'm mostly joking, but like, yeah, I do agree. This is a phenomenal game. I absolutely love it. I feel like I need to mention this at least once. This is basically in an eternal struggle with Metroid Dread for my 2021 Game of the Year. I can't pick. It's so hard.
Me, but Scarlet Nexus and Metroid Dread.
Very, also very valid. Scarlet Nexus is a very based game. And
Correct.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait to get to Automata because I hear people say even as great as Replicant is, Automata is even better. Which
It's most of your game design issues that we've cited and talked about, like fixing fast travel. It had good combat from the start.
yeah,
And it fixes the story structure. On top of the fact that it keeps up that same level of quality more or less throughout. So you guys are in for a nice time when you get to that one. I've already played it.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna get to it at some point in the near future. Near future.
Just for your own sakes, play it on PS5. Don't play it on PC. Fuck.
I got the PS4 version.
Even the Game Pass PC version isn't that great.
Yeah. Or hey, maybe I'll even pick up hopefully a Switch version if that ever happens. Fingers crossed. Feel like it should happen at some point.
I think it will.
I mean,
I
if
think
it
it
could
will.
barely run, if the PC version wasn't good, I wouldn't count on the Switch version being good.
Well, the reason the PC version wasn't that good is because it was outsourced. The same thing happened to Replicant, so
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
Because the Switch can totally handle the
I
Nier
think the
games.
Square Enix would do well to just get an internal studio set up for doing PC versions of games.
But yeah, I love this game. Can't wait to get to Automata. I love this game so much. I even plan on getting to Nier Reincarnation at some point, which is a mobile game, which I never thought I would say.
Oof.
But yeah, I can't wait, and I guarantee you all, I will do a backflip when Nier 3 is eventually revealed, because it's gonna happen. With how well Automata did, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait, and I really look forward to the future of this series. And hey, if they ever re-release Drakengard, or even potentially do Drakengard 4, I'll buy that too. God damn it, Yoko Taro, you have me wrapped around your finger.
When that card game is done, I'm buying it.
Yoko Taro's name was literally trending when that card game was announced, simply because that's all that needed to get people interested. Oh boy, oh my god, 2 hours and 52 minutes. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Is the recording over?
No, it's not done yet. I figured I would just give us a proper closeout. So, thank you all so much for watching. If you're still here by the end of this damn near 3-hour adventure, Scott, Flame, thank you both so much for coming on to join with me. This was a ton of fun, and if you guys ever want to come back for another review, you are more than welcome to. Like, I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said a Pokemon Legends Arceus group review. I would totally be down to do that if both of you want to.
I think we will.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Yeah, so unless we or I end up doing something spontaneously in between Arceus and now, that's probably the next video you can expect on my channel. But yeah, go check out Flame's YouTube channel and his Twitter. Go check out Scott's Twitch and his Twitter. I'll put links to all of them down in the description below if anybody wants to go check them out. Oh, what's up?
Just to shill out my own stuff, I make reviews that are like more scripted. I just recently did all the 2D Metroid games and Jet Set Radio. And I also did Bayonetta 2 a little while back.
Nice.
Just a tangential discussion piece because we're talking about a series connected to Platinum, of course.
Yep.
Alright.
Kill that YouTube algorithm.
I'm mostly a Twitch guy, I guess. I have a YouTube page, but I don't touch it very often.
He's been trapped in Dragalia Lost Prison.
Yeah, I lost a bet, and I've been forced to play the entire main story of Dragalia Lost. That's not fun because it's a mobile game and it's got all of the worst tendencies of mobile games.
You keep saying you lost a bet. You made a bargain, my man. You brought that upon yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, the joy in his voice.
My main thing is I play a lot of Atlas games on Twitch, on SpaceKingScot, and on Twitch, and Right now, though, I'm not streaming to Twitch because I'm playing the Shin Megami Tensei games in private to catch up to 5, and I'll be doing a proper stream Twitch playthrough of Shin Megami Tensei 5 once I'm done with 4 Apocalypse.
Nice. But
I'm looking forward to doing that because I do like sharing that experience with my friends as I get it, and also just the whole process of streaming it just forces me to do it because sometimes I struggle with like depression and stuff. So, like making the commitment to okay, I'm gonna stream this is like, all right, you will play this game now.
yeah, I don't know if we struggle with depression. Maybe we should be playing Nier then.
Yeah, that's why I'm not playing Omori.
I was just gonna say, don't play Omori then.
Yeah, no, Nier, as well as some of the other stuff I've played this year, was more than enough for the depressing games quota. So, no. No thanks. Not for now.
Next year we can just play Kirby to wash away the pain.
Yeah,
Ironically, yeah, I'm hype as fuck for Kirby Forgotten Land.
that little pink puffball, the cure to all of life's misery. That smile could feed world hunger. Alright, but I think we're good to go here, and oh, this is gonna take forever to render.
You're only gonna have to cut out a few parts. It's not gonna be that bad.
Maybe.
It still takes a while to render, especially depending on your computer.
I don't know. I like a lot of the discussions we had here, but all right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you could subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And once again, be sure to go check out Scott and Flame's respective channels and their Twitters. They're really great guys, and I am so happy they were here for this review. So, thanks again for joining me, guys, and peace out to everybody watching.